I know, I know. Some of you guys might be wondering. It's been a few weeks already. It's been a few weeks since this has already come to an end. And you are just now doing a discussion video over this? Well, let me be fair about this. I did say around the time when this final chapter came out that there was a few things I wanted to tackle with Samurai 8. I didn't necessarily reveal what they were, and this was actually one of them. And if I had to be perfectly honest, this isn't going exactly the way I had envisioned it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be fun nonetheless. Because I figured, hey, you know what? Yeah, one of these discussions I figured I could just turn into a podcast and, just go off the rails from there. And, of course, I just want to say this right now, I hope everybody is doing safe out there with how crazy this lockdown is getting. And especially looking at other parts of the world. But that's besides the point. Y'all aren't here for that. Y'all are here to relieve the stress, have fun, and, just kick back and enjoy. And I'm saying that, hey guys, what's up? Lucky Cheese 7 is back again to give you guys another podcast, this time on Samurai 8. And like my other podcasts, y'all should know I don't really do these podcasts by myself. I mean, yes, technically I could, but what fun would that be? What fun would it be just having me here by myself, like every other YouTuber, when I get to be sitting here and discussing about a series with a buddy, with a friend? So I've brought with me, this time, only one special guest. So go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello everyone, BlueStarSaber. It took us a while, but we finally did the promise that me and Lucky Chi would once again co-host another podcast. But this time not 7 Deadly Sins, of course Samurai 8. But yeah. Because I'm pretty much the only friend that he knows that has actually read this dang manga.
Yeah, I was going to try to see if Sparta had read it too, but I know Sparta's been going through some stuff. Which, by the way, buddy, we hope you're doing well. Just
Not to
mention,
I'm pretty certain the others are still pretty much too angry at Kishimoto to even check out his latest work. So yeah, there's that.
Which is actually a good way to dive into this. So, given my podcast structures, which you guys know, there's a usual structure to them as to how I tackle and whatnot, and this one's going to be similar in that respect. I don't necessarily think it's going to be as long as the other podcasts have been, but it should make for an interesting discussion. So the first topic we're going to actually tackle is when this thing got announced. Now, I'll share my thoughts on this. And Blue Star, you're free to chime in whenever, but
fair enough.
My thing with this is, I think we've all been aware that Kishi was going to do another manga. After Naruto, I think we were all aware of that, and he even made this statement clear. I don't know if it was 2015 or 2016, but I know like sometime after Naruto ended, he said in an interview that he's been working on an idea for a sci-fi manga.
And for the last, 2 to 3 years, we've been like, where's the sci-fi series? Where's the sci-fi series? Where's this damn series? Is it Boruto? Go on.
That's the thing people were thinking. They were like, oh, I hope it's not Boruto. And by the looks of how he was talking, it didn't really feel like it was. And I remember I was sitting there thinking, okay, look, because if this was like immediately after Naruto, let's say like 6 months in, I was going to be like super, super cautious as hell just reading it.
I'm pretty certain if it was 6 months ago, you probably wouldn't be reading it.
No. I might check out the first chapter and give my impression on it. Be like, all right, yeah, whatever. But probably the best I would do is probably what I'm doing with Boruto right now, is just like skimming, rather than actually look at what's happening. But, time went by because it was like that one announcement after Naruto ended that, yeah, he has an idea. Another year went by. Really didn't get much information. Another year went by, still nothing. And it wasn't until 2018. 2018, if I remember correctly. Or no, it was either 2018 or end of 2017. I'm pretty sure it was end of 2017. One of the 2 years, there was that photo that came out of what he was presenting. There wasn't a title out at the time, but he did like sketches for the manga. And I remember I was sitting there going like, all right, so we at least know what he's been doing. Granted, we couldn't read any of it because, hello, they were sketches, and we could only work off from what they were. But by the looks of the sketches, I was like, that's kind of interesting. What did you think, Blue Star? Like, about the sketches that came out initially?
Well, I'm not sure if I recall seeing the sketches or not, but I do remember seeing the trailer, which I was like, okay, I'm not sure who's the protagonist at this quite yet. Oh, I think let's see, looking back now, it should have been clear it would have been that little boy that was in it. I wasn't sure what to make of it at first. I mean, it definitely didn't look like, let's see, Kishimoto's art style from, like, Naruto. Granted, they later learned, of course, one of his previous assistants is now drawing the manga. So it's like,
Akira Kubo, I think, is what his name is. Yeah.
it's like, okay, so Kishimoto was doing to writing, which it was a bit surprising to me because I thought he'd be more wanting to draw a series, and I think many of us have joked or taken this serious about saying, if Kishimoto's ever going to do another series, he better just draw it and not write the damn thing. But yeah.
That was the general consensus at the time. Was like, maybe his writing isn't exactly the best thing. And I'll say this: like when I heard that he was just writing the story, I was kind of apprehensive because, again, we know how Naruto turned out, and I'm not specifically just talking about the ending. There's a whole host of reasons on my thoughts with Naruto, but I thought it was interesting because I was sitting there going like, all right, you know what? Okay, yeah, he's writing it, but he's not drawing it. And I know a lot of people would want him to draw the series, but I do remember him saying that when it came to drawing manga, he did find it pretty taxing.
I do wonder if 15 years of non-stop drawing Naruto had just broken him. I mean, after all, I believe this publication of shonen manga is very, very grim and very harsh, from what I understand.
Yeah, and I mean that, and like over the years, like since Naruto's ended, like there have been a few occasions where he's felt it. Like I remember that one video I was watching, and I shared it with you in Sparta.
I mean, let's see, most comic books artists I know, let's see, in the US, it takes 1 month to probably draw, or 2 to 3 weeks to like draw one issue.
Yeah.
Let's see, granted they do a few extra pages compared to like weekly shonen, which is like 17 or 19, but still, it's like doing that for like to try and get it for like a weekly series must be painful. I mean, I would love to draw.
I mean, hours too. That's probably the other thing.
Oh yeah. I mean, I would love to draw a manga series. Heck, part of me was for a while wanted to be a mangaka like Kishimoto. Part of me still does. Maybe knows. Maybe I'll do a web comic series. Blah blah blah. If I ever do the thing, but hey. But there's no way I'd probably be able to do the lengths of like Naruto, One Piece, or even Bleach.
Like doing a chapter every week.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it's like one of those things where, you get the chapters done in advance and just release them that way. But
yeah, which I assume that's probably what Shonen Jump does. At least I assume every mangaka at least has like 4 or 5 chapters ahead.
At the very least, yeah.
But yeah. On one hand, I suppose we'd see him not drawing the series, I guess, would make many people try and actually pay attention to his writing and see whether or not he really is a good or bad writer or not.
Yeah, because like, and I was thinking about that too, because like right before the first chapter came out, like I sat there thinking, okay, you know what? Like, I wonder if half the stuff that happened in Naruto was also simply due to him trying it. That was another thing. I mean, I'm not saying that excuses anything, but it was something that kind of like thought. I was like, all right.
I mean, for most part, let's see, when it comes to comic books in the West, let's see, you get usually one artist and one writer sharing the work. You mean, you get like the guy writing out the story and then the guy drawing it. I mean, but the most famous example is Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see.
Rest in peace, by the way, you guys.
Yeah. Though for mangakas, usually they both end up, for most part, usually drawing and writing the story. Granted, I believe they get assistants, but still.
I mean, it's very rare to have 2 people on board. I think the only No, there's a few instances, but the one that comes to mind is the guys
Death
behind
Note.
Death Note. Yeah,
Yeah. That
there's
was
Death Note, and then there's the guys behind Dead Man Wonderland. That was
yeah.
two people.
Fair enough.
So there are instances where it happens, but it's not a thing that happens often.
Yeah. Now, granted, this was one of those things that happened. Well, granted, the main drawing point was Kishimoto new sci-fi series
Yep, that was
featuring samurai. But yeah, let's see. You've seen him do ninjas. Now let's see how he does samurai.
I mean, we got a taste of it in Naruto, but we didn't. Okay, let's be fair. The samurai in Naruto weren't really utilized that much.
I mean, let's see. For many people, they had let's see, the Hanzo versus Mufone fight was the one further fight in the entire series.
I mean, look, I'll say this from a combat sample, Mifune was cool, but you know, there's a few things.
I mean, honestly, if he really wanted a samurai character, probably should have introduced one much, much earlier. Either with Naruto's group or maybe even Sasuke's, whatever the case. Or who knows, even have one be a member of the Akatsuki. Whatever the case, you should have done one way, way sooner.
This might be just me speculating, but I think there were a few instances that were hinting at him doing a samurai series, especially with that one color page around the time when the war arc was going on with Naruto, Sakura, and Sasuke as samurai. So I think that Kishi has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus,
I think there was also one where he was Naruto as a mecha samurai with these toads fighting a robot. Granted, I think that was supposed to be a promotion of a movie or something. I don't know, but
yeah, what movie was it? I'm trying to remember. It's from the director that did District 9, but I forget what it's called.
Fair enough.
That and here's an interesting fact that I don't know if you knew about simply, but Kishi originally wanted to do a samurai series. He wanted to do one, but he opted out on it at the time because Rurouni Kenshin and Blades of the Immortal were going on. So,
which is fair enough.
Which I can understand that because, you know, if he had, I'm not saying if it would have worked out. Actually, it might have, but you know, when you have those two series in particular, I can understand why.
Now, granted, perhaps maybe now, given the news of what happened with the Rhomin Kenshin offer, people might have been looking for a samurai series that doesn't have a guilty conscience to it.
Well, this was like before we found out.
I know.
So honestly, when it came to me, and again, because of how much time had passed by since Naruto ended, I was like, all right, you know what? Kishi's not drawing it; he's writing it. So maybe that'll also give him more creative freedom as to what he can do since he's not drawing the thing. You know?
I'm pretty certain if it was let's see, since this series came out 5 years after Naruto ended, I'm pretty certain if it was before then, I would not be touching this series because at the mindset, I was still annoyed at Kishimoto. I refused to buy any more volumes. Let's see, games, videos, DVDs. Granted, I ended up buying some old Naruto volumes, and I'm wondering whether or not I should exchange all my volumes just to buy the box sets. Granted, the only downside is if I do buy all box sets, that means I will end up owning volume 72, which I do not want to have. But hey,
I mean, you could always This isn't what I would suggest you to do, but you could always rip out the final 2 chapters if it makes you feel better.
Or just look at the Sasuke fight and Naruto parting, and then that's it. But yeah,
Your call. Anyway.
But yeah,
I would have still argued though that final volume cover should have been Naruto versus Sasuke. I don't care what anybody says.
Either that or just a remake of the first volume cover.
Which I guess some people say that's kind of what it was echoing to, but
I didn't feel like it. Honestly, I mean, but more of an older Naruto as Hokage like that. But yeah,
or I would say do what his brother did with the last volume cover of Robart's Hunter. I thought that was pretty cool.
Or just who knows, Naruto as Hokage smiling.
You could do that.
Or either that or Naruto in a sort of and with Team 7 or just Naruto with family or something. But yeah, all the possibilities you could have done. But yeah,
there's a bunch of things. There was a lot about this that people were talking about. Oh my god, I can't believe this is because there was a joke going around for a certain point because he talked about this, and there was like no news for a while, and we were like, "Is he ever going to come out with a new series?"
Oh yeah, like we said earlier, people wondered if Boruto was that series since by the time we had any news, Boruto had a lightsaber.
It's not just that. See, I think it also kind of got to people when Hiro Mashima came out with Eden Zero because they were like, "Wow, 6 months in and he's already on to his series. Where is Kishi?" Like that was the joke people were making back then.
Not to mention a year later, Fairy Tail got a sequel series spin-off.
Yeah. Which, technically, if you look at it, Fairy Tail's not over now.
Mm-hmm.
So, Alvarez technically is not the final work.
Mm-hmm.
Technically.
Oh, yeah.
But
granted, I think we can... Well, granted, Kubo's also been a bit delayed with his new series, though granted, we finally got it.
Although we never wrote... We see, here's the thing about Kubo. Kubo never made an announcement that he was working on a new series because we didn't know what he was up to. So, the fact that his thing came out, it was like, okay. Like, you get the Bleach announcement, which I think is kind of suspicious from Jump that the same day this series ends is the same day they announce Bleach coming back. I was like, that timing cannot just be a coincidence.
I know. Did Bleach come out around the same time that this announcement came? Because, well, they did say this is an anniversary project.
No, the same day they said Bleach was coming back was the same day they announced that Samurai 8 was ending.
I know.
The same day, and I was like,
that
timing is a little off.
Possibly, though. Granted, I do partly wonder if... See, you know the Rock Lee Ninja Powers anime? Was that announced around the same time when the Bleach anime was announcing its closure?
So
in many ways, you could say this is Kubo getting back at Kishimoto. But hey.
Yeah, you could be right about that.
Either way, but yeah. I didn't know that Oda once talked about possibly doing a sci-fi robot series after One Piece, though I think now he's just going to probably do one-shots. But yeah.
Now, here's what if it came to Oda, I'll say this. If One Piece ends, I don't think his next series will be that long.
Let's see. Yeah.
I'd give it maybe like 2 volumes at most. I don't think it'll last as long as whatever we're dealing with now.
Fair enough, but anyway, Anyway, back to Samurai 8, sorry.
Getting a bit off about that. So, given that we've had this first chapter come out, because this is around the time, we found out the title Samurai 8, and then we found out, hey, it's coming out in May of last year, and at first I was sitting there going like, okay, I'll check it out, just see what it was like, and my first thought on the chapter when I first read it, I didn't hate it. What's that?
I didn't hate it.
One of the big complaints I've heard from people was that it was a little confusing, which I could honestly see how, because there was and I get what Kishi was trying to do. He was trying to establish everything.
But it felt like too much exposition, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's what it was, because I was reading it a couple times and I was like, okay, it's one of those first chapters where you gotta sink into what's happening, as opposed to just reading.
Well,
fast.
Well, yeah. Granted, I think for the most part, the first chapter of any major manga series, or just generally manga in general, usually ends up being 50 pages because, well, it's a new series. They're trying to get a first impression. And usually this is also the same chapter that usually covers one episode, though granted, I believe My Hero Academia kind of broke that trend a little bit.
My Hero, Black Clover. I think that was it. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Usually, like I was saying, most, mangas usually have one shot, and usually this is mostly to try and make a first impression. Now, regardless of whether or not you think of these series in general, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Fairy Tail. I'm sorry, what?
I said they all had one-shots.
Yeah. Well, yeah, one-shots, but yeah. Yeah, they all had one-shots, but when they also came to their first chapters, along with My Hero, Black Clover, let's see. Let's see, and I suppose even Nisekoi. Let's see. So I've been reading Nisekoi lately, so that's what I'm thinking about.
That still counts.
But yeah, let's see. And I guess should monthly manga count? Because that's usually the length of pace they usually get. But anyway, but usually when all those chapters came out, and they brought and well, to me they gave a very strong impression of a first chapter. It's like, okay, this series is going to be iconic. I didn't really quite get that with Samurai 8, to be honest.
Yeah, I will say this, like, I wouldn't say the first chapter.
Is the defining, let's see, of how good bad the series is going to be, but it gives the first impression.
Yeah, like, I don't remember. It's been a while since I read the first. Well, I mean, I read it recently, but like remembering my thoughts on the first chapter itself, I do remember liking it. I'll say that I liked what was happening, and I think I know what it was too. I think it was because like it was kind of different from how Naruto was with the first chapter, in terms of what Kishi was trying to do from a writing standpoint. I was like, all right, you know what? I get what he was doing in that. So,
oh yeah, the first chapter of Naruto was iconic.
yeah. So I think it was more so, and this might just be me, but I think it was just him trying to do something different. I'm not saying that always works, but you can tell compared to Naruto, he was trying to do something different here with the first chapters.
Oh yeah.
Which, I in hindsight, you could say it probably would have been better if not that same kind of chapter, but like say if it was kind of simple, you know? Because that's like I said, there was a little bit too much exposition in the first chapter to like establish the world itself. In my opinion, but now as far as how that first chapter turned out, I mean, I will say now, I thought it was good, but I think it could have been better than what it ultimately was, just because of like what we mentioned with like expositions and whatnot. But I think that also mainly ties into the other stuff too. So this would actually be a good point to jump into our next topic. Hachimaru, the main protagonist of the story. What are your thoughts on Hachimaru, like as a character?
Well,
You could even include first impressions to even say how you felt about him towards the end.
To be honest,
I'll say
I'm
this:
not
he kind of had that
sure.
Boruto-ish personality in the beginning. I'll say that.
Borscht? Did you say Borscht?
No, Boruto-ish. He kind of had that Boruto-ish personality to him in the beginning.
I guess. I mean,
Well,
granted.
in the sense that he was kind of being a brat, you know.
But to be honest, he doesn't really remind me of your typical shonen protagonist of them being reckless idiots. But then again,
Which I thought was kind of cool. I thought I was like, all right, so I thought, okay, so compared to Naruto, yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Granted, I suppose it was interesting that this kid started out as this disabled cyborg of sorts, where he's only allowed to not leave his house. So yeah. So yeah, he's cooped up in his house. He wants to explore, become a samurai, etc., etc. And when this his teacher comes in, let's see, and he eventually gets the power to do so. I thought, okay, yeah, right, interesting. Granted, I wouldn't say there was anything distinct about him. I guess you could say he had the typical hair, sort of typical hair of a shonen protagonist. I guess, kind of. Though, granted, maybe not as spiky.
No,
granted,
that's a usual trend with the shonen protagonists that they're kind of spiky haired.
Yeah. Well, granted, I suppose one thing that probably stands out let's see about him is probably his glasses. Really, I mean, I don't really see many protagonists with glasses. I mean, in particular in shonen manga. I mean, granted, I know Harry Potter has glasses, but that's UK fiction. Let's see. It might be just because I haven't spent as much time as I have with Naruto, but I guess let's see. I guess he didn't feel
You
like,
can also read it in a weekly basis too, so that's the other thing.
yeah. Let's see, and then halfway through, I forgot to read the manga, but hey. But I feel like one thing that was kind of lacking for the character is he didn't really let's see, besides just being a samurai, he didn't really have a necessary goal at first.
Yeah,
Until, granted, he had some touching moments with his father, though he did defy his father and then end up leaving, which then, and he did have some flaws about being ashamed of where he came from when he lied to his princess first about, let's see, about, you know, and then he's confronting his father and one of the main bad guys of the series, or like the main bad guy of the series, the former disciple of his master. And once he learns the origin of himself and his father, you get a like emotional moment, and I think that was probably the standout character moment. And then he goes on his quest to find the keys and stuff. Well, granted, I do like, let's see. Now, like you said, he seems to be a bit bratty, maybe a bit cocky in himself with his new abilities, but he can humble himself, and especially if he's someone else's bested him or something like that, and then he gets a bit of a talk to. I mean, the thing that stands out, I think, is eventually the relationship with his princess, which I'll go more into that, but yeah. Granted, let's see, due to the fact that the series was rushed, I'm not sure whether or not the ending that he got was always planned, but it's a rather bittersweet one where, let's see, he becomes a sort of like deity thing, but he's not allowed, but he no longer has a physical body, so. No, granted, it's more like his actions that leave a sort of legacy for like his group of friends to live on and then going. So on one hand, I suppose it's at least his ending at least is much different of like most other shonen protagonists, in which you see them like a bit older from like in the epilogue, and depending on which series, they either accomplish their goal or having kids. This one's a bit more bittersweet, so yeah. I'd say honestly, I wouldn't say he's memorable or he's iconic or anything like that. He's not going to probably and given the fact that the series is cancelled, he's probably not going to stand out. I think you're probably going to find a lot of people probably enjoying Naruto more as a protagonist, but I wouldn't say he's awful, at least. I'd say he's decent.
Yeah. I'll say this now because see, Naruto, for me, just to make that comparison, after a certain point, well, I feel like now I don't even have to go into it because it's kind of well known at this point. But for those of you who don't know, like Naruto was a character that I appreciated a lot, and then
he became too obsessed with his boyfriend.
Him hyperventilating. I'll just leave it at that. Him hyperventilating just ruined him for me. I was like, and that was and I think that's what kind of kept me going was that with Hachi, because I remember I was sitting there a couple times just thinking, okay, like I always kept that in my mind because to me, prior to that for Naruto, I thought he was great. Yeah, he had some issues here and there, but I thought overall he was a great character up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
So my fear with Hachi, and what kind of kept me interested was, okay, so where is his journey gonna go?
Let's see.
Where does he go moving forward from?
I will say at least Naruto had a brief recovery with the Kushina stuff, but afterwards, blah. So I go back on.
No, yeah, you have like little things like that, and I was kind of worried about that. And again, even though it's been 5 years, that kind of got me a little worried because I was like, all right, like, is Hachi gonna ever reach that point where he goes somewhere and then he just falls? That was my biggest fear. I think that's what kind of kept me going with this character. But over the course of the story, and this was just me kind of like rereading the series again, he actually does grow, from what I noticed. Like, he doesn't have the same attitude that he has in the beginning of the first chapter. And I mean, yeah, there's like little characteristics that's still there within him, but he does grow as a character, and that's something I kind of do appreciate. Like, okay, yeah, like as a character, he does grow. He doesn't try to pull the same stunts that he did, like when he was lying to Anne, and when he was like just saying like, "Oh yeah, of course I'm this." Like he'll take into account what's going on. Now, granted, there might be some things where he's a little apprehensive about, but I think overall, like if you like really sit down and like look at his character, he does kind of grow in a sense. Sure, you could say as far as goals go, I will say like as far as goals go, like I like the goal per se. Though you could argue it's a little bit like Ichigo in a sense where there is not like a set defined goal for his character per se, but
until it's like his father's dead, which he then says he will become strong enough to avenge him, which I find a bit ironic that the mangaka that made an entire series where it's like revenge is bad makes another series in which the main character wants revenge and it's justified. But hey.
Which I also think, and this is me, but I think that's also Kishi just trying to say this is a Naruto. This isn't that series in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this is also just him just going like, okay, I've already told that story before.
So I can't make a samurai Hokage. Granted, half the manga ends up being Sasuke. But anyway,
I would do a whole podcast on that discussion. So if y'all guys want to check that out, just look up part 1 versus part 2. You'll hear me rant about that for days.
But yeah, anyway.
Anyway, in a weird way, now this might just be me, but he kind of reminded me of Gio from Opart's Hunter.
I see.
And I think that's more so because of where their characters at.
You mean a bit more?
Because if you remember in Opart's Hunter, Gio
was bratty at first, but became a lot more mature.
Yeah, like that. Like they kind of start off as like the simple shonen protagonist, but as the story moves along, they do kind of grow. Now, because I'll tell you this, and this happens later on in this, like towards the end, but that little conversation that he has with Anne, if this was Hachimaru at the beginning of the story, I don't think that conversation would have played out the way it did.
Fair enough.
But I will say, as a character, like, and look, I know the series didn't last as long as Naruto did, let alone it getting completed the way Kishi and Okubo wanted to. But as a whole, with what we got, I will say compared to Naruto, there wasn't anything that was like of a character assassination or anything that kind of went against the story. I would say with what we got, it was pretty decent. I might cause a controversy here by saying I think I like Hachi a little bit more than Naruto in that sense. And you could say that might be my bias kicking in because of post-pain outside of the Kushina stuff, but that's neither here or there. And then comes so overall with Hachimaru, I thought it was decent. Yeah, sure, there's a few things. If the series went along, I'm sure he could have became not even great, but a better protagonist. But with what he had, I thought he was pretty decent for what Kishi was able to do with them in the 5 volumes that we got. And now let's get to Anne, which is the female protagonist for Samurai 8. And this is something Blue Star and I would talk about on occasion outside of like podcasts and whatnot. Because I remember sometimes like we would bring up Kishi and what he would do next, and we always talk about like, oh, Kishimoto's not good with female characters. Good example, Sakura. Good examples, Hinata.
I think there's even some points where we've called his writing of females rather sexist.
Yeah. So when it came to that, that's where I was also kind of curious about too. With Anne was like, well, this was before she even showed up, because I remember the first few chapters we didn't get any female characters, and I was like, that didn't bother me per se. But I was kind of curious. I was like, all right, so
I think
what
some
are
people are
female
joking
characters?
like maybe he's not going to do any female characters at all.
We were kind of joking about that, but maybe because of how Naruto turned out. But I also kind of thought if he does do one, how does he take that care? Like, how does he take a female lead and in comparison to Naruto? And I want to get your opinions on this, Blue.
Okay.
And if you want to, you could bring up like how you felt about how she
Well,
could handle female characters in
I think
Naruto.
when the first thing that came to mind was please not be another love interest. Please not be a love interest. Please not be another love interest. Given how the last attempt where you had a female protagonist whose main plot was the romance plot, subplot, and given how that turned out into a mess, let's see, you could say I was probably a bit worried. Granted, earlier we learned that the samurai, let's see, they have a princess that's powered them up. So, to be honest, let's see, I think my first impression of that was like, okay, that seems a bit outdated. Let's see, the males get to wield the swords while the women are the support. But yeah, but who knows? I don't know. But yeah, so we get Anne, and part of me is a bit worried. That's like, wait, is this supposed to be a sort of Hinata? I was like, oh no, please not let her be a Hinata. But granted, I will admit, she doesn't have Hinata's shy personality. She does. I wouldn't say she even has Sakura's personality. Who knows? It's very possible that after Naruto, Kishimoto's been put off of the idea of doing a shy, witty side character like Hinata, or the typical tsundere protagonist you get in from the likes of Sakura, just as how toxic the fan base of Naruto was around these two characters. Granted, I will admit, let's see, due to the fact that, well, granted, it's established early on, I think, that this character is going to be Hachimaru's princess, and she's going to be a support role for him where, let's see, instead of like action combat oriented. So, in many ways, it seems like Kishimoto was clearly establishing earlier as like, one, let's see, she's going to be a support role straight away. Don't expect her to get much action. And two, yeah, she's likely going to be the love interest for Hachimaru. So, yeah, no love triangles, no rivalry with a boy, no
Thank God.
secret shy crush. But so, yeah, who knows? Naruto must have really scarred him on that. Or, let's see,
I don't blame him if that's how he feels because it's
probably like,
the
okay, gotta avoid that. Let's see. But yeah, so perhaps avoid romance plot wise and avoid the personalities of my two previous known female characters.
Although in saying that, this might just be me, but I feel like now I'm not saying it's like a blend of both. But there are like little traits of them in Anne. More and this is the part I find kind of amusing. But like when Hachimaru and Anne first interact for the first time, and at first he brushes her off, but when he tries to ask for her name again, she gives off that attitude that attitude you see in tsunderes.
Oh yeah.
And then when he tries to
So,
ask her for like seconds, and she's like, Get it yourself." I was like, "Okay."
yeah. No, granted, it's not the typical scenarios of angry eyes and then BAM!
It's like I guess you could say it's kind of like pseudo tsundere in a sense, where it's not completely a tsundere, but there are like little elements of it.
Uh-huh. So yeah. Granted, let's see, the first serious moment of their relationship is when she asks Hachimaru about where he came from, because let's see, her friends who teased her about losing her soul spear or something. I don't know, the thing that connects the samurai and the princess together.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was, but let's see. So it's like, aren't you a bit worried? You don't know who you end up getting your samurai as. Let's see. So she's kind of hoping to see what he's like. So he lies about how skilled he is and where he comes from, and to like the father arrives and then he's forced to confess.
And you want to know what the funny thing about that is? All of that happens in a bench.
Oh, yeah. Kishimoto must really like benches.
Which is kind of funny because I was thinking about Naruto on that. I was like, all right, Kishi, I see what you're doing.
But yeah. So like I said, she's mainly a support thing. Though granted, we learn a bit more that, okay, a princess is half the samurai's strength, so okay, so there's a purpose for her to be in support role. Even though I'm hoping that Kishimoto will give a more action female-oriented character, I think would definitely be disappointed with this, but like it seems like all females end up being princesses, which seems a bit outdated in terms of modern-day shonen.
I will say it does feel a little outdated, but I will give him this. At least he establishes that like early on. It's not like in Naruto where you're like, everyone's a ninja, and the only ninjas you see actively play a role are all the guys.
Yeah, or more specifically, Jinchuriki or Uchihas.
Pretty much.
But anyway. But let's see. But the things that probably stand out about this character is learning her backstory about her foster brother, as they were both orphans, how he promised to protect her, and when he failed to do that, he commits sort of seppuku, low grant, I think it's a samurai ritual, and ends up dying. And due to the fact that Hachimaru is quite similar to him, he sort of gets a connection, feels the same connection to him, which gives him like initial strengths and during their first few fights together. And once like this newer samurai comes in that's better than Hachimaru in many ways and very much nice to Anne, which causes Hachimaru to get a bit jealous. They finally have a talk together after asking whether or not you're just obligatory samurai and princess, where she finally tells him about her brother, and where Hachimaru, and this really highlights the relationship as Hachimaru vows to now protect her not as a princess but as Anne. And then, of course, we get the final bit where the bad guy captures her and dies, and well, not dies, the bad guy captures her, resulting in Hachimaru to like become sort of like a godlike entity or something like that, leaving her behind. So even if they are both romantically loving each other, they can't be together due to the fact he's gone beyond, sort of thing. And in a sense, and then afterwards, she then decides to become a samurai herself, picks up Hachimaru's sword, and find like the 7 key light warriors of samurai. So and sort of like she takes over his role.
Which I will say this. Compared to how things ended off for Sakura and Hinata,
you mean being housewives?
And got the better resolution.
I will say, yeah, that's probably, even though it did probably to me felt a bit out of nowhere, but hey.
It did, but that's also kind of given the situation that Kishi was under too.
So yeah. So let's see. In terms of female characters, probably written by Kishimoto, I'd say, well, I'd say probably second best compared to like Ino, because I feel like Ino was the only decent female character to be written by Kishimoto during the course of the manga, though granted.
You had Conan also. Conan was pretty good.
Oh yeah, though granted, I'd say probably Ino was the more active, which kind of annoys me, because in some ways it felt like she was a lot more active than Sakura was, at least during the war, at least initially.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, moving on.
So, when it came to Anne's first appearance in Chapter 6, when she first showed up and I saw her look, I was like, I wasn't worried per se, because there's always that term, never judge a book by its cover. In this case, never judge a person by its looks, by their looks. So I was like, all right, you know what? Yeah, like you've got the hair and whatnot. And I'm like, sure. It might be a little bit of a thing, but I was like, I'll wait and see. Then you heard this. Then the stuttering happened, and then I was like, oh, I know exactly what this was entailing. And then I looked back on Naruto with Hinata because of how long it's been since I've actually looked up on her character. So I was like, you know what? Let me actually remember how Hinata talked with Naruto and specifically with others. And I noticed this. Okay, it's not just a Hachimaru thing. She has trouble talking with other people. It doesn't exactly make her shy per se. And it kind of got me wondering too, like, all right, so what's the reason behind it? And then, so for a while you're kind of thinking, okay, maybe she's kind of just like that. But then there are a few things I noticed from Anne that separated her from Hinata. And one was when Hachimaru introduced himself.
Uh-huh.
Hachimaru, and because initially he brushed her off, and then when he said, "Hey, what's your name again?" and she gives off that attitude. And then the second part was when he asked for second, and she's like, "Get it yourself," and he's like, rejection again. To which then you see her in the corner, just like giggling off in the back, and I was like, hold on, I don't remember Hinata ever doing that, not once. So that was like point number 3 for me. I was like, okay, so that's more of like a playful banner between a boy and a girl.
Yeah,
And
probably
nothing like that was in the Naruhina stuff.
well, yeah, probably doesn't help that she, design-wise, hair-wise at least, she looks like she's got similar hair to Hinata.
A little bit. But you also got to keep in mind, Hinata had purple hair.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
well,
and had black hair.
Black and white kind of makes it, But
It kind of does. And I'll say this, unlike with Hinata, you actually do get to see her interact with Hachimaru. And you actually get to see them be a unit. Like, you actually get to see, yeah, look, sure. Kishi did set it up in a way where it was like, okay, all the female characters, I know it's a little outdated, but, they are princesses. Or not all. Because, I mean, there's a few characters that aren't princesses, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Especially towards the end of the manga, too. But I thought she was interesting, at least on that front. We're like, okay, so because the female character on Kishi's side of things, and we've always made the statement, me and Blue Star have anyway, as some of the other members of the podcast. Female characters aren't exactly Kishi's forte, and by that I mean,
I think some of us have even called it sexist, I believe, in some. But yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of a thing for me where I was like, okay. So first starting was a thing, but then I was like, all right, you know what? Hold on, this is still early. This is still the early manga stages. Let's wait and see how this actually goes through. We see these little moments where, she's interacting with Hachimaru, and it's not just that per se, but I think the biggest critical moment for Anne was the backstory. I think that was crucial. That was crucial point number 1. Maybe our crucial point number 2, because you did have that moment, although that's more of Hachimaru's moment, because I was going to say the moment where after his dad died, and he vowed to protect Anne. So I guess you could say that's more of his moment, but I guess from Anne's side of things, if you want to take that into account, she kind of does reach that point in that stage where, she's, I don't know if comfortable is the right word, but where it's a little bit easy, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not like as awkward. I would definitely say her backstory was like the biggest thing. Like, as soon as I saw her backstory, and here's the thing: we've seen female character backstories in Naruto before. There's only a few that even stand out. The one I know, at least to me, that stands out was Kushina's. I mean, okay, yeah, granted, you could say Kushina's kind of had Minato revolved around, but
don't forget Naruto. Don't forget Naruto being born.
Yeah, so there was that. It was more of a, okay, what led up to the Nine Tails attack, but I think out of all the female characters that even got a backstory, hers was pretty good. Now here's the thing. You look at Sakura. What was her backstory again? Her friendship with Ino. And what happened there? Petty. Well, the short answer, it's petty. It's like, you and I aren't going to be best friends anymore. Why? Because you love Sasuke. I love Sasuke. So we're rivals. And I was like,
Granted, I do recall in her fight, she monologued out. She also wanted to distance herself because she didn't want to compare herself to Ino anymore, but who knows?
yeah.
Still, it doesn't help that gives people the wrong impression. You ended your friendship with your best friend over a boy.
Like, even to this day, I'm still kind of like, all right, you know what, Sakura? That's the one thing. Like, I was like, okay, you know what? I've defended you and all, but at least before the ending. But if there's one argument, it would be that. So you had Hinata's backstory too, technically, which if it came to backstories, I would say it wasn't all that bad per se, because hers was more of expectations from the Hyuga clan and whatnot. So
it gave us a sense of being an underdog.
Yeah, which I get, but I think my thing with that is that when you look at the overall perspective of Naruto, that doesn't really come into fruition. Because, well, I don't think I have to reiterate what happened to Naruto because it's pretty well known at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, if y'all want to hear me come make a stance on that, just go look at the other Naruto podcasts I've done, where I discuss that in detail. When you bring her backstory into account, I think that's really telling of how and why Anne is the character that she is in the beginning. Because, she was an orphan. She was raised by her brother.
Uh-huh.
And it was like that sibling bond, It was more like, okay, so we know how she was. We know her connection to her brother. And the tragedy there is that her brother ends up dying.
Yeah.
Not willingly, I shouldn't mind, but it was just a way to become like, because, you have to commit seppuku to become a samurai. But given the flashback, you already know it doesn't exactly work out that way.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why what pushes her brother to that point was because she came into defending her. I remember reading that chapter and I was just like, well, shit. Because then you get the connection between her brother and Hachimaru. And I know the joke at that time was like, oh, so Hachimaru got friend zoned pretty much. Or the joke was brother zone. That's the main joke people were saying at the time. We see how she's utilized in helping Hachimaru. And I will say this for her role and how she does in combat with Hachimaru. Again, Hachimaru is mainly doing all the work, but half of his stuff wouldn't be possible without her. So it does kind of show how crucial she is to his victory.
Oh, granted, the support role that Kishimoto gave her does seem a bit outdated. Something you would probably see more in the 70s or 80s, maybe 90s.
Yeah, I would say if this was like early, maybe you could argue late 90s too. If this was like late 90s-ish, maybe early 90s, maybe late 80s, this, I think, would have worked. But, again, I think it's just a time thing. I think people are just like, we're in 2020 and this... I mean, look, some stuff. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but, some stories are like that. I mean, again, it might give out a wrong message, but... that's the thing. It's really dependent on the story. I think that's the important thing. And I'll say this, like, as far as setup goes, at least Kishi laid that out early on. It wasn't a thing of like, oh, hey, there are samurais. There are, it's like Naruto where you have girl samurais and boy samurais. See, because now, if that was the case, You knew the expectations then.
It's like we expect to see at least some form of action.
Yeah. So on one hand, I guess you could say Kishi kind of dodged a bullet there. It was like, well, last series I had Girl Ninjas, didn't really do a whole lot, so I saved myself from this. You know what? Princesses. Support. That is what it is, but and by the way, guys, that's not me going SJW, and I hate bringing that topic into account, but
Granted, I would just say an SJW probably might be somewhat justified when it comes to Naruto, right?
yeah. But no, that's the thing. Like, some stores are just like that, and there's just nothing we can do about it. But but it's like I said, I do think the role Anne was given, I think worked, and not to mention, as far as her relationship with Hachimaru goes, like yeah, it does grow. You do kind of see how close they get, especially towards the end, when you have Goku involved, because ultimately he's the one that kind of pushes that relationship to a point where it does, you could say, become a thing, even though it is a little bittersweet, like towards the end, because Hachimaru ends up fading away and whatnot, and Anne's there by herself. But I will say this: unlike his other female characters, at the very least, where Anne starts off and where she finishes are in two different places.
It's like, okay, this time I can't make a housewife.
Yeah. No, like that's the thing, like she starts off as a princess, but then when you reach the end, and look, we understand that the series got rushed, and that's not on Kishi. I'll say that right now. That's just under the situation he was in. Well, I should say Kishi and Akuba, because again, it's a duo this time. So, given the situation they were in, when you look at the character start and the character end for Anne, it is a pretty significant jump. Because again, you look at Sakura, and you look at the end of Sakura, when you really look at it at face value, nothing really changes with Sakura. Nothing.
In some ways, I'd argue it's gone even worse.
Hinata, you could make the stance that she regressed or she did remain the same. Although someone could argue, she was meant to be the Hyuga clan leader.
I'd say at this point, her crush on Naruto went from cute to downright annoying.
Like, I'll say this: part one, I think it was justifiable in part one, but then when you get to part, see, I think that's what the problem was with Naruto, is that like with the female characters sometimes. Okay, Sakura, you did see some growth, but here's the thing: with Hinata, there wasn't really a lot. Like a few years passed by and whatnot, so you would think, okay, maybe she could still be a little shy, but maybe she could talk, But did that happen? I don't know. 700 chapters are right in front of you, so you tell me. And that's excluding the last.
I mean, let's see. When it comes to individual battles, though, granted, one of them she was teaming up with someone. She only had 3. 3 out of 700 chapter series.
And here's something I will say, just going back to Naruto real quick, before Hinata. The only real moment Naruhina that I think worked was the pain confession. But here's the thing about that. That goes nowhere.
Well, if anything, I think it may have made the whole pairing wars even worse.
It did. That's the thing. It's like, okay, you get that confession, and nothing happens with it. It's not until a movie, which even then, that movie says, yeah, Naruto didn't really think about it. Hey, it's fact. I'm not making that up. That is fact.
If it was James, we could go on for hours about how much this scene was bad.
Oh, don't worry. We'll do a podcast on some different point. That'll be fun.
Well, I was referring to the confession, but okay, but yeah.
That being said, though, you could say it's a little out of nowhere with, or Anne doesn't end up. But I do think it says a lot. Again, despite it being in a rushed situation.
Uh-huh.
Because again, she goes from being Hachimaru's support to ultimately, by the end of the manga, taking up the mantle. And when you look at endgame female characters from Kishi's side of things, I think that's really saying something. With
Well, it's definitely an improvement. Now, whether or not this was the original intention or not, we won't be sure.
yeah, again, it's only given under the situation that it is. If this was what he had planned for the ending for Anne, oh man, if given its original course with what he intended, if this is indeed true, then you know what? I'll clap out the key shield and be like, all right, you did good. Now again, does this make up for how things ended up in Naruto? Probably not, but it's a nice starting ground. I will say that. From where things ended off there, again, 5 years later, to where we see this. And not to mention, like I said, the romance part too. I feel he at least improved on that aspect also. Like, because you could say another important part for Anne was that angle. Again, it was never as big as Hinata and Sakura's was, but it was kind of a factor
Uh-huh.
in that sense. But
Well, I suppose one improvement is to decide not to do a love triangle.
thank God, that was the last thing I needed. I already dealt with one. Actually, no, two. If you count Bleach, but Bleach was kind of like 50-50 for me. So either way, but yeah, I already dealt with one with Naruto. You think I'm gonna handle tackling this twice? No. If there was another pairing where I would have bailed, I'd have been like, nope. I know exactly where it's gonna lead.
Mm-hmm.
No way I'm dealing with that. But overall, Anne as a character, I really like her. I'll say that. Yeah, look, she's got her flaws and whatnot. There are some areas where I think she could have used some improvement in, but I think ultimately, if you look at where she started and where she ended, it's in a different spot. And if it were, I doubt it's going to, but when you look at her end game journey, it does kind of end up in a spot where you're like, all right, if you wanted to, you could open up the door to have her as the protagonist, which would be interesting to see, at least by that point.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, like I said, overall, I think Anne was pretty decent as a character too, which leads us to our third main character, I should say, and that's Dharma.
The talking cat samurai.
Mm-hmm. Give me your thoughts on him, Blue.
Okay, when I first found out a talking cat, it's like, okay, this is different, but heck, you know what? Fuck it. I mean, screw it. Sorry for the language. Screw it. I mean, besides I like cats, so it's like, yeah. And apparently he's a legendary samurai that's cursed to be stuck in a cat's body. In many ways, it's his mission that drives the plot. In many ways, it seems to be this manga version of the Kakashi-like mentor, who's a legendary, who's like a strong, famous figure. Other examples I can think of is like maybe Bleach is Kisuke for Ichigo, All Might, and I suppose Eraserhead for Midoriya, I guess maybe. And I suppose maybe Rayleigh for Luffy, maybe, perhaps. I don't know, maybe that's a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
For Shanks? You could argue that.
But anyway, but yeah, but regardless, but yes, so yeah. Now, granted, there's really I don't really remember some of the early interactions besides the mission. He seems to be a bit of a strict sensei, a bit, though he does have quite confidence in his student. I think it's more towards near the end of the series where their bond starts to go a bit, and granted, there's a bit about this character that we don't really know much about, other than the fact that, well, apparently he lost his princess and other stuff, but But due to the fact that the series is cancelled, we probably didn't get his full backstory.
It did kind of feel like a little bit of Kakashi in that sense, where when you see Kakashi, you know, he talks about like how he's experienced loss, he's lost his friends. So it's not exactly in the same vein, but there's similarities between the two from that aspect.
I'd say the thing. Granted, he does also have his. The main enemy for the series. I've forgotten his name. Trying to remember. Let me get the.
Are you referring to Atta?
Yeah, Atta is his pupil, so
yeah,
there's a bit of a personal conflict there. Where it seems like So in many ways, Hachimaru is his second student. So in many ways, this story will be about how he succeeds with his second pupil compared to his first. Eventually, we learn that his human form is the same form that Hachimaru plays in the games, which results in a very OP fight with him against the tournament villain Benkai.
Yeah, I think right. I think it's Benkai. Is that a Benkai or Benkei?
Something, I don't know, but either way, but hey. Unfortunately, him and his sort of like rival of sorts, I suppose, who we'll probably get to later, end up being removed from the final fight, so we don't really get a last hurrah, at least in terms of him. But he's alive, and it seems like he's now guiding, Anne for the rest of the series, so... On one hand, a talking cat, fun, interesting idea. Was it played out as it could be? Sadly not, but hey. It was. I don't want to say he was bad, but I don't think he was bad at least. And at least, it seemed, in some ways, he did seem like a more better teacher than Kakashi was in certain stages.
It's funny. Didn't you think of Kakashi now?
Well, to be fair, Kakashi only really taught Team 7 in one arc, and then taught Sasuke off-screen in the second arc, and then only taught Naruto again once more during the third arc in part 2.
That is kind of fair. So, as far as Dharma is concerned, I will say it kind of sucks. Not in his character, because his character is pretty cool, but again, this whole thing goes back to the situation of the manga and where it ends up. If you ask me, I think we were only scratching the surface with Dharma, towards the end. Because he did some stuff with his backstory, especially during the fight against Benkei, and I remember I saw that chapter, and I was like, all right, you know what? This, okay, Dharma was already interesting, but that interest level kind of grew a little bit more when I saw that, and I was like, okay, you know what? This is something good. And especially when it comes to his connection with Atta too. You could almost argue it would have been a Nato Obito situation if Minato found out that Obito was, how do I put it this way? If Minato found out that Obito went dark side early on, so you could look at it from that perspective, but
I suppose another one you could compare to is Saratobi and Orochimaru.
Yeah. I guess in a way you could say it's almost kind of like a redemption of trying to fix who you were as a mentor and trying to go up to that again, or Not the best example I want to use, but Luke from the sequel trilogy.
Oh boy.
I have a whole host of
I'm glad you don't have either James or For Life here.
James would be in agreement with me. James would be like, "We don't."
Yeah, but I'm talking if you had them both here, they'd be arguing about Luke's character. But anyway.
Yeah, so he was pretty interesting. It was kind of neat seeing why he was exactly stuck as a cat.
Uh-huh.
Not to mention the fact that he could kind of just go back and forth between his human form. I mean, granted, we don't find that out again, like towards the end of the tournament.
And there is a time limit for it, so it's
Yeah,
like
so you could kind of say it's almost like an All Might situation there, where
mhm.
where All Might can only go
And
into
the
his
fact-
nuclear form for like a certain period of time.
And the fact that he still doesn't have his princess, it means he's only using half his power, though granted it's still OP.
I know that was my thing too, because I saw that I was like, he's only doing that without a princess. What was he do? It kind of makes me wonder, like, what was his power like before that? Given the situation, we were only scratching the surface with Dharma, and if it were given, if Kishi were to, continue the story with Kubo, the way they envisioned it, I'm sure there's a lot more to Dharma we would have found out, but unfortunately, that's kind of the situation we were in. But overall, I would say as a teacher, despite the fact that the series got canceled, Dharma was pretty cool as a teacher. I'll say that, and even as a character, and as far as his abilities go, it was a whoa. This is him without having a princess.
Mm-hmm.
Then if he had a princess, no one would be left standing. I'll say that right now.
At least it's also like Kishimoto's not underdeveloping him due to the fact he's afraid of him stealing the popularity of the main character.
Kakashi.
Like, who cares if Kakashi's more popular? Just write your main character. Just write your main character as the main character.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, like I said, overall, I think Dharma was a cool character. Would have been cool to see how things would have gone beyond the point where we were, especially if Okubo and Kishi were able to tell the story the way they wanted to. But like I said, I thought he was cool for what he was.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets us to, I don't know if you want to call this a main character-ish, but Hachimaru's pal.
You mean the cyborg dog that meows like a cat?
That's my confusion. I was like, wait, that's the only character where I was like, are you a dog or are you a cat?
And again, apparently the Dharma is supposed to be a wolf or dog-like samurai, but he's got the form of a cat, so hey.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like a recurring joke in this is that you have dogs and cats, or epics of dogs and cats, and they end up being the opposite. Mm-hmm.
I do think that was a little amusing, though. But yeah, there's not a lot I could say about Hayataro other than you could kind of make the argument to say he's kind of like the mascot of the team, like Happy.
Mm-hmm.
Although he's more useful than Happy in that sense.
Uh-huh.
But okay, so there's not a lot I can talk about Hayataru, but what about you, Blue? What's your thoughts on Hayataru?
I mean, he's just a fun he's just a minor character, though, granted. He's like the loyal companion of Hachimaru, so there's a sense of loyalty there, and I think he's even tried to defend his master a few times. Usually ends up getting beaten up, but still. But he's also like the ride, so honestly, I don't really have much opinion on him, but he does have this kind of like one funny quirk, which is okay. I can get behind this.
Not only that, but I think it was after the tournament, he kind of detaches where he gets his original form too. So you get the tiny Hayataru, and you get the key holder Hayataru.
Oh yeah, so hey, if you like the original sign, here's a little one. If you like the let's see more tougher, stronger version, here's the big one.
Yeah, I remember I saw that. And I was like, "Alright, that's kind of cool." It's like if you want to have one, here's one. Then you want the one that can handle stuff. Well, right over there. But yeah, not much to say about Hayatar other than he makes for a cool companion.
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us over to the secondary characters. More importantly, the character that made a significant impact on Hachimaru, and that's none other than his dad, Forta.
Oh yeah, let's see the possible Iruka of the series, I guess.
If Haruka were to die.
Well, yeah, Iruka, but dead. Granted, we spend a little time with him, in the first two chapters, where he's a very protective father, but he doesn't. Let's see, he clearly loves his son, but he does not want him to leave, even when he gets like a workable body. Let's see, and to imply that he's hiding a secret, which we find out that he used some sort of scientists that were creating these artificial keys to open one of the two boxes, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
particularly the dark one. But let's see, Hachimaru was like the eighth disposable one, but he became too fond of the little boy, ended up defecting from the organization he was working for, and ended up raising Hachimaru in secret. Let's see, eventually him and his son Rikano, once he sacrifices his life, but yeah. So yeah, there's many ways. He's sort of like the emotional origin for like Hachimaru to go on his journey of like finding the keys, beat the bad samurai, sort of like that. I guess you could say an Uncle Ben, I guess.
That's the comparison I was going to make. Like he almost feels like Hachimaru's Uncle Ben in that sense.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like if you look at Hachimaru pre his father dying and post his father dying, there is a shift in his character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like Naruto where Jiraiya dies. He takes that approach, and the next arc, it's like, oh no, please,
I mean,
Sasuke. It's not.
I mean, like, let's see. After all, we all know that Peter Parker was using his powers irresponsibly before Uncle Ben got shot, and then afterwards he uses them nothing but for responsible. So yeah, so that's the sort of characteristic you're going to get. But yeah,
which I think. Hold on, I'm actually gonna look this up because I think Kishi mentioned something about that.
Fair enough.
Because I know, I don't remember where it was, but I do recall Kishi saying that like there was a bit of Spider-Man that was kind of like inspired into Samurai 8, so it wouldn't surprise me if
that was it.
Yeah, because it did kind of feel like that.
Fair enough.
So, and honestly, if you think about it, like his character was like pretty essential to the first arc of the story.
And he's also the first major death. Now, granted, whether or not any more characters would have died, who knows? I mean, Shonen rarely does kill off characters.
I think, okay, if you want my opinion, I think Dharma would have eventually died.
Fair enough.
It's almost a thing for mentors to get killed. I mean,
oh yeah.
Again, Obi-Wan.
Oh yes, the Obi-Wan effect.
Obi-Wan, Han Solo. Although Han Solo's a little questionable, so there's
Dumbledore.
Dumbledore. You could say Snape, but that's towards the end.
I'd say Snape's more of like a sort of Itachi.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but let's see. I suppose another one would be. Oh, I had something, but now it was gone.
There's a few characters you could say. I know. I forgot Kenshin's master name in Rurouni Kenshin, but there is a.
Well, I have not gotten that far in Kenshin, and I'm not sure if I ever will, given the controversy with the series.
This is just like before all that happened, so.
Okay. But anyway.
No, but overall, there's not much more I could say about. Wait, were you still talking about Forta or?
Well, Yeah, that's what we were talking for. So
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to say?
no, I pretty much think I've gone what I've gotten to say.
Yeah. There's not much more I can add on to that because I mean, my opinions are kind of the same too on that, and it's like I said because I kind of interjected my points while we were talking about it, but
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: without Forza and his impact on the story, I don't think it would have taken Hachimaru to the spot that he is, where he ultimately went to at
Fair
the end of
enough.
the year. So he does kind of lay off that groundwork, and it's like we both said, he does kind of fall under the Uncle Ben category, where
Mm-hmm.
that's where the main character just changes.
Fair enough.
So
So, anyway, I believe Hagamichi is next on our list.
yeah, Hagamichi. You could technically say he's kind of a minor character because he only shows up in the first arc, but
He's Iron's bodyguard originally, right?
he's the one that brings in two Hachimaru and Daruma.
Mm-hmm. He was quite formal, I have to admit, particularly with Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but honestly, to be honest, I can't really remember much of this character because, well, he's kind of bland, really.
I mean, there's not a lot that happens with them.
I mean, I'm pretty certain the one time we see him get in action, he gets his butt whipped, but hey.
Yeah. I mean, the only other time he gets brought up again was like during the flashback with Anne. That's
Mm-hmm.
the other time.
So yeah, so he's pretty much one of the planet's protectors, but that's about it. So yeah, there's really not much you can talk about him. He might have shown up again, maybe, but hey.
No, I remember going through my reread. I think that's the only time he showed up. So there's not much for Hagamichi. Yoku's kind of the same way. Almost, she's the one who was talking to Anne about like what it's like to have a samurai and what you have to do for the samurai. She's that's funny. She kind of reminded me of like the part one female characters from Naruto. More,
So you mean like
Ino and,
Ino or something?
more like Ino and Sakura when it came to like the boys.
Oh, let's see. I hope you get a handsome bad boy.
Mhm.
That's a bit, yeah. But honestly, I completely forgotten about her. Granted, this is what happens when I don't reread the first half of the manga. But hey,
And she was the one who was like, "Oh my god, he's so high, he's so cute." I was like, all right, that's that's Sakura and Ino talking all the way back. I mean, you could argue Tenten also, but
well, you just part one girls of Naruto in general, really.
mm-hmm.
But hey, well, at least Fritzy. I guess some habits of Kishimoto can't really change.
No, but she wasn't like that big of a character. So like, all right, you know what? Well, let it slide. She did offer some decent advice to Anne, so
Mm-hmm.
like not necessarily too big of a character, but thought it was worth mentioning. Then we get to the dynamic duo. Oh my god, I'm gonna put these two in together. Ryu and
So, in other
Kotsuka.
words, the actual secondary characters on this list.
Technically, yeah. So Ryu and Kotsuka. Oh my god. Let me just say this right now. These two are hilarious.
I mean, well, you got, let's see, Kotsuge, a con man, and Ryu, a person with amnesia.
And it would be like instant too.
Mm-hmm.
If Kotsuka, okay, actually, go and share your thoughts, please, sir. I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I figured my first impression of these two characters is like, okay, these two could be like, yeah, these seem like recurring side characters, or like these two are probably going to be tagging along quite a bit. Granted, I'd say the more interesting one of the two would be Ryu first, because it's either due to the fact he has amnesia and doesn't really remember who he is, and also it looked like he was the one of them that can do the fighting. Well, it looked like Kozagaki was just like the comic relief, trying to flirt with the princess, get on Hachimaru's nerves, so stuff like that. And they agreed to work together in a tournament to get some money, which was the second arc, which results in the final fight of that tournament being Hachimaru versus Ryu. And it's a much better improvement over what was happening in their first fight, as it took a suicide attack for Hachimaru to finally land a hit against Ryu, while Ryu just easily bested him. This time it changed much differently when he uses his trusted princess, and being a lot less cocky, so there was that. Then, when we get the main bad guy of the arc, we find out that Kosuya is actually working with him and then is controlling all these androids to shoot him, and he had Ryu along as well to try and lure in powerful samurai for his boss. He gets defeated and captured by the group. With granted, Ryu still sees the good. I suppose Ryu still kind of sees Kayotsuga as sort of a good guy still. Granted, we eventually then learn that his name is actually Sander, and he's actually the heir to a long line of samurai. Though apparently it's been revealed that his blood was weak, so he couldn't really so he had the low chance of becoming samurai. And this resulted in him teaming up with his mentor and the apprentice of his father. Particularly when his father looked like his father went mad trying to get him to become a samurai. But then, due to the fight with Damo, who learns everything, the truth is then revealed to Sander, and he has a change of heart and decides to help the good guys, which both Hachimaru and Ryu believe, since the sincerity of him wanting Hachimaru, due to the sincerity of wanting to avenge his parents, and the fact that Ryu seems to have the ability to tell who's a good guy or not. So for the rest of the arc, you see these two fight alongside Hachimaru and giving him intel on how to beat the bad guy. And just then it looks like, he might try and go back. Sander might go back to bad guy's side. He pulls another cross double on the bad guy. And then afterwards, it seems like these two they're going to become recurring members of the crew. And during then, afterwards, we find when Hachimaru is trying to find these other 7 samurai, it turns out Ryu is one of them, which, unfortunately, this is where it ends for the series for them, because, they don't really get involved in the final battle. So we can never really learn out how Ryu lost all those memories or where that plot line was going. And apparently, Sander was also one of the 7 samurai, so that's probably implied that there's going to be a story arc of sorts, or character arc of him actually becoming a samurai at some point. Unfortunately, we won't be seeing that. So yeah. So there we go, with the Dynamic Duno. That's my thoughts. Enjoyable side characters, showed a lot of promise and interest. Unfortunately, cancelled series means unresolved plot.
Yeah, I can honestly second that opinion too. I thought they were pretty fun for
in some ways, I'd say Sander is probably the most normal of all the characters in the cast. But anyway, go
on. I will say his comments with Hachimaru, referring to Sander, right? He did kind of give me that Renji attitude from Bleach. And do you remember when Renji would always try to down talk Ichigo?
Mm-hmm.
At any point during the series, I kind of got that impression of him, not in a bad way. It was just I've seen a little bit of that. It was kind of amusing. I do think it was kind of amusing. He was "Hey, Anne, maybe you should ditch him and join me." And she was like, "Yeah, no, we're not going that far." I will say the standout out of the two was just Ryu. I thought Ryu was just funny. It's especially the moment when they were infiltrating the ship, and Sanda was like, "Hey, I want you to kill everyone on the ship, except for the girl." And the first person he took his blade out on was him. And I remember I was sitting there going
oh, I forgot about that. It's He's like, not me, you idiot.
See, the second that happened, like my first impression of that was like, okay, you know what? Ryu might actually be a pretty fun character to have around. And he ended up sticking around for the entire manga. So I was like, thank you. I will say, I kind of did feel bad for Sanda as far as his backstory goes, because he was duped and whatnot. I mean, you could argue it's nothing new in terms of storytelling, but when you consider the situation he was under, it is kind of fall into that line of, well, shit. I had no idea this was going on. I thought I was doing this for a cause, and it just falls over my face. So, that is what it is. But Ryu, I will say, you could tell with the story that where it was going. It did feel like we were going to learn more about him as the story progressed after that arc, because we do find out some things about Ryu, like, all right, so he's one of the keys. He has his backstory. He doesn't remember practically anything about his past, so you're kind of left with that mystery, going like, all right, so how did you get to that point? And unfortunately, we don't find out, but it did kind of give us some insight as like, all right, so there's something there. Like I said, it's unfortunate I'm not going to get it, but they make for some pretty fun interactions. Would definitely say that. But yeah, overall, in terms of the dynamic duo, I think they worked out pretty well.
Probably the best characters in the series. Anyway.
Definitely the funniest. I'll give them that. Especially when they're together.
Oh yeah.
This brings us over to side characters, or you could argue minor characters. So, which you could have technically loved Tagamichi and Yoko in, but you know what? I figured they were in the beginning of the story, so some recognition. So the first side character we have is Yasha, which is Dharma's master. I guess you could say one of the only female samurais outside of, well, and by the end of the story, but
Oh yeah. Well, honestly, I can't really remember much. I mean, she's usually there in flashbacks of and usually giving lectures to Dharmaru, so there's that. I mean, in many ways, she's what starts the quest. She gives Dharmaru the quest to continue as it is. Unfortunately, I don't think there's really much I can really say about her because, well,
we only know so much from the flashback.
Yeah. And whether or not we'll actually see her in the actual series, who knows? But yeah. I mean, so I honestly can't really comment too much on her.
Like, really, she's there to give us some stuff about Dharma's past. Which
I believe she was involved in him turning into a cat, if I recall.
Or something along those lines. But again, not so much as to what her character was per se, because it's like I said, I'm sure if the series got to have its proper run, probably would have gotten to see more of her.
Probably would have. Maybe we might have even met her, but hey.
There's not a lot to comment on for Yasha, but for what she provided to Dharma as a character, it does kind of say something. So, I guess you could say she kind of falls under the missed opportunity category. So,
yeah. Granted, so let's see, she did not end up being a Tsunade, but let's see, Tsunade by default.
Yeah, it could have been a Tsunade, if given the proper course. And then that brings us over to Ikkaku, which is Hachimaru's brother. The evil brother, I should say.
Oh yes, one of the villainous brothers. Shouldn't this go in the villains category?
Technically.
Well, honestly, for Ikkaku, which I believe is, I take it it's supposed to be number 1 or something. Because I know that Itch is 1 in Japan, but honestly, he's just there kind of thing. It's like perhaps there's going to be more delve deeper into this sort of relationship, but
It felt like there was going to be more. I'll definitely say that. It definitely felt like there was going to be more with this character.
I mean, after all, Kishimoto does seem to have the sibling rivalry thing. So yeah,
We know that.
but yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, he's just like him. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between him and his other identical siblings. So yeah,
Yeah.
and Ritzy, in the end, he
I will
gets
say he kind of did provide us a bit of a shock value where it was like, oh shit, there's multiples.
yeah, and that Hachimaru isn't a normal kid.
Mm-hmm.
By some standards. Granted, in the end, him and his brothers all end up being possessed by Hachimaru as he's going in some sort of
Yeah.
Fodo Mioni god mode kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. So there's not much I can comment on either. I will say again, it's another one of those missed opportunity moments where I do think Kishi and Okubo would have taken his character in a direction where he probably would have made an impact. But I think, given with what we got, it's just one of those things where
See, if he was going to do his 10-volume thing, I figured he could be like an antagonist for at least 2 or 3 arcs.
Yeah, I think he probably could have been like this. Maybe, and this might just be me. I think he could have been like the tertiary fight. Like if we were to do build-ups with it, like say he's like the first main fight, then you get Atta, and then eventually the Supreme Overlord, which is Kala.
Fair enough, but yeah.
But that's just a situation we're in.
So anyway,
I was going to say, let's say Funamio for the end, actually. So let's jump into Nanashi.
Nanashi, is he that samurai that
shows up in chapter 2 and 3? I
can't tell if this guy was a girl or a boy.
No, that's the speculation part. Everyone was like, "So what is he?"
Let's see, is he a Konohamaru? Is he a sort of crushing Hinata? Just what is he? Something like that, honestly.
Yeah.
See, I mean, he's got a similar backstory to Hachimaru as he's trapped inside, and as a result, he ends up being the number 2 gamer in the same samurai game they played.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes him out, gives him sort of like the confidence he needs to to become a samurai himself, and then we find out he is, and he ends up arriving to the final battle to help Hachimaru out, giving him the words of encouragement. And then it's thanks to him that Hachimaru ends up becoming God mode thing. And then later again, he is seen with sort of like funeral thing, and is following Ann to become one of those 7 samurai that she needs.
You could tell, like especially towards the end, that they had something planned. The fact that he's even included in, like in the final.
So it probably means we probably would have seen at least one arc of him being a samurai, but probably before the actual final arc, at least. But hey,
yeah, like that was my thing. Like, because I remember reading like, and I'll say this: I thought Nanashi was a interesting character to say. It was like just seeing his dynamics with Hachimaru and whatnot, and the way their last conversation turned out, it did kind of hint that yeah, they're probably going to meet again. But here's the thing, because I was reading the book a week at the time, right? So, chapter 40 or 41, I can't remember the exact chapter number, but the second he showed up at the end of the chapter, it was kind of strange.
I said that came out of nowhere.
It did. No, because I remember I was reading the chapter, I was like, that's kind of sudden. Like, like there wasn't any build up to it. It was just like, hey, here's the night. I was like, okay, that was kind of like my first indication of like, okay, there's something going on with Samurai 8 that is not gonna exactly go the way we think it's going. And I guess in a way you could kind of say that Nanashi was the indication of a series getting canceled. He did give some importance. Again, it does feel like, based off the ending, that we missed something with him. Because remember, the last time we saw him, he was just in the village, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm back as a samurai. Like, wait, did we miss something? Like, there was like a huge gap. So
It's like, did we enter a time skip or something?
I was, because I remember after I read that, I was like, all right, Kishi, you need to clarify on this, because that literally came out of nowhere. And lo and behold, a few chapters later, got canceled. So I guess that was the answer. It's like, yeah, well, I wasn't able to finish it up the way I wanted it to, so can only do so much with it. But again, it's like I said, just based off the ending of the chapter with Nanashi, it does kind of hint that he would have had some importance in whatever Kishi and Okubo wanted to do with the story. So I'll say he was cool, but again, it does fall under that category of like, man, we could have, we really missed out on something.
So next to take it is Rhomin.
Yeah, Rhomin.
Now, if I recall, he's the samurai that Hachimaru fought in the tournament and later was revealed to be some sort of galactic patrol police guy.
Well, no, Ronin's the guy he's from the first chapter. I guess in a way you could say he's the Mizuki. He's there and he's wanting to basically figure out where this key is, right?
Let's see, if I recall, Ronin's sort of like a name for rogue samurai.
Mm-hmm.
Or wandering samurai.
Basically.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot to say other than him kind of being like the facilitator in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Let me just try and see if I can. Okay, in terms of bad guys go, he does look intimidating at least.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's iconic at least, but in terms of a first bad guy, he looks alright.
Yeah. Like I said, he's kind of the one who does kind of force Hachimaru to commit something, so he does have some importance in that.
Well, pretty much, he's that bad guy that first looks like he's about to get away with his evil scheme, doing the bad stuff. Then the hero arrives and does his ultimate power-up move, or his signature move for the series, and then gets one-shotted.
Yeah.
I mean, for like Mizuki, it was being beaten up by 1,000 shadow clones or 100 shadow clones from Naruto.
Mm-hmm.
For Bleach, it was Ichigo striking down that one hollow with a big sword. Let's see, One Piece. I guess. Okay, One Piece is a bit unique as it was Luffy as a kid. Oh, granted, I think it ended with him beating that sea monster that took Shank's arm 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I suppose for My Hero Academia, there's the sludge villain. Oh, granted, I believe Black Clover has the more standard. Let's see, villain that gets beaten by Asta, I believe, right? Because I did see the first episode. Before you completely banned me from watching any Black Clover. So yeah. I guess it was interesting that he's got some sort of like robotic skeletal horse, I guess.
He kind of gave off that knight on a horse impression.
But yeah.
What's that thing called? There was a story. It's a short story. It's about the knight on the horse, and it takes place at night. It did kind of give me that sense of like with Ronan. I was like, all right, so he's ultimately there to kind of just set up Hachimaru as the protagonist.
Uh-huh.
But now let's go into the other characters. And these are the characters you could technically say got like are also kind of in the category of like missed opportunities. So first is the little girl named Ichigo. Who
Oh
is
yeah,
also
who is very intelligent. Let's see, for her age, and then just like that, her entire planet is being wiped out. Though she alone is the survivor due to the dog samurai. That's it, and she finds out she's one of the 7 samurai that Hachimaru needs to open Pandora's box. So yeah, so unfortunately, due to the fact that she comes late into the series, you don't get much except from like brief details about her. So who knows? Her appearance makes me wonder if eventually we're going to get some sort of time skip where she's much more older and is now a samurai, but who knows? And again, this was going to be a 10-volume series, so.
it probably would have
Uh-huh.
given its proper course, but I don't know.
Let's see. But yeah, the other one, let's see, is like the dog mentor sort of thing.
Hanaichi.
Haneichi.
The one who was a rival to Daruma
Yeah.
in the early years.
And I believe he had a cat form, and I believe that his avatar, his game avatar, was used by that character from the second chapter, Yashi. So yeah. So it looks like he's a bit interesting. It seems like he's like the mentor with the better apprentice. Well, granted, he's quite formal with like Dharma. And granted, he seems to be like a bit of a criminal as that police samurai that was with Hachimaru in the second arc.
Yeah.
Let's see, wanted to arrest him, but due to the circumstances, he agreed to join forces with Dharma, so it looked like it could have been a fun sort of rivalry there. Anyways, it could have been like a Guy Kakashi thing.
It could have.
Without Guy's goofiness. So yeah. Unfortunately, he's also taken out of the final battle, so we never really get to see what he's made of, but hey. I guess that's that, but yeah.
Yeah.
But here's now, anyway, moving on to the last side character.
It's Goku.
Goku, yes. Clearly supposed to be a homage to, like, you know, Goku from Dragon Ball.
In terms of name, yeah, but in terms of personality,
he reminds me of Sai.
He does.
Let's see.
Like, he's kind of got that Sai-ish personality to him. Honestly, if you think.
He annoys the main protagonist at first, and then they become friends, sort of. And in some ways, he's one of the ones that's very observant on the relationship between the main male and female character.
Kishi, are you winking at something that you're not exactly proud of?
You're saying, like, I made a mistake not using Sai enough.
So what it feels like.
And not making it, like, making it very clear that, yeah, Naruto and Sakura like each other. So, yeah. Because clearly...
Because, I was going to say that, just because based on the situation, and because if you think about it, he's the one that does push Anne and Hachimaru to confess about everything that's happened.
Oh, yeah. And let's see, are you actually lovers, or is this just some sort of formality because you need her as a princess?
Yeah. And she even brings that up too, like, alright, here's the thing, do you see me as a princess, or do you see me for who I am? And as soon as that moment hit, I was like, shit, she laid out the question right off the bat.
Which we get that confession scene, which is very similar to the one that happened in Naruto. But yeah, but a lot less controversial.
A lot more mature too, in that sense.
Oh, so it didn't result in, like, let's see half the fandom hating on Sakura.
No,
or the female lead.
No, you see, this is the thing. It didn't. That confession didn't end up with the, "Oh, I can't believe you just did this," and now we're not gonna see. Like, I'm glad it didn't go that route because that already happened once. and it didn't end up well either. So
Let's see. Even if that wasn't the intention,
no, but that's like one of the unresolved things about Naruto. Was like, there wasn't like a clear resolution of that. So I like how, and that's the thing. I like how here Kishi actually went. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna have them talk it out and just straighten things out.
yeah.
And as I read that chapter, I was like, okay, he didn't bail out because I remember before that chapter came out, there were some people who were like, we've seen him pull this card before,
Ah.
and it's one of those cards where it's like, you want it, nope, you're not good. So
Yeah. Sadly, unfortunately, due to the fact that he appears in the last arc, or in the between the arcs, whatever. Let's see. We don't really get much of him other than he does princess duties himself because he doesn't really have one himself, and also he feels like it helps reflect more on a building character.
Mhm.
We don't really get to see him in the final battle, which is a shame because from what we've seen, he easily defeats Hachimaru. So yeah, in some ways, he also seems like Kishimoto is addressing the fact that while Saya's skilled, he was never going to be like one of those skilled that would eventually compete on the likes of Naruto and Sasuke.
I just feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is unfortunate because he, again, like many of the other characters, I do feel like he also falls under that missed opportunities category. And like we've been saying, guys, all of this doesn't fall under Kishi. It's just a situation that he and Okubo were in that that brought the series to this point. So yeah, like I would say out of all the missed opportunity characters, I'd say Goku probably did. He had a little bit of impact. Again, it's not a lot, but when it comes to like driving characters and stuff, he did play a little bit of an importance. So I definitely say that.
Oh yeah.
But now that brings us over to Fudomiyo, who
practically is god of this universe.
Yeah, practically.
I suppose you could say he's like the Sage of Six Paths, but early on.
I was gonna mention that. I was like, he kind of does give off that Sage of Six Paths vibes. I'm like, all right, okay.
Oh heck, yeah, he's in this plane of world existence where he talks to the main character.
Mm-hmm. His appearance really, it kind of gave off that Hagoromo-ish vibe. I was like, all right, it's not exactly Hagoromo, but there are some things where it looks a little similar.
And perhaps Kishimoto's figured that, like, okay, might as well do all the crazy lore in the first few volumes.
Yeah, right.
Rather than just do it at the end, and people says, this stuff contradicts your early work of hard work and without bloodlines.
But yeah, give me your thoughts on Fudomiyo. I mean, like technically, you could say he showed up in like towards the end, but
Well, he's just like a large lore expedition dump for the most part. Granted, I suppose there were some funny parts where he makes both Hachimaru and Durama do this dumb face of what his explanation is, or the fact that he can't tell him something.
Yeah.
Or just the confusing riddles. So he does have his funny moments. But yeah, so that's all I have to say about him.
Yeah. You could kind of say he's kind of a plot device, in a sense, but again, it kind of goes back to what I feel like I'm reiterating at this point, but he also kind of falls into that missed opportunities category, where there's some things about him that are interesting. Like, I think the most important takeaway was that, like, you find out that the prima villain of the series, Kala, was his student.
And his creation.
Mm-hmm.
Since he came from another universe and decided to create life from this one.
Yeah. Which I kind of noticed that similarity. It was like, okay, because the start of the series, you have Dharma, and you have Ata, and Ata is like the failed student. And then when you bring in Fudo Mio, and here's the thing, we find out everything about Kala. We find out that Kala is like set up to be the prima villain. And then when you get to Fudo Mio, we find out, yeah, that guy, he was my pupil. I was like, ooh, okay, shit. So it was, I don't know, it almost kind of feels like to me that this was kind of like a redemption story, you know? Like redemption and like, I don't know if you were getting that impression, Blue, but like
What for Fudo Miyogo?
like Fudo Mio and for Dharma, like it almost kind of felt like for them it was kind of like a story of redemption, you know?
I guess I didn't really think of redemption. I mean, usually when I think of redemption in shonen manga, it's where you have bad guys turn good, no matter how ridiculous it may seem.
Well, you know what I mean, like redeem their honor, you know, like
Ah,
where like they felt like they failed.
okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
that's what I mean. Like not exactly like redeem themselves from like misdeeds they've done, but just like in terms of like where things have taken them in life, you know. Again, there's not a lot I could talk about Funimio, but it's like I said, I feel like given the proper course, and if it had, you know, got its completion, who knows? And well, it did feel like it was kind of set up in a way where it was like, hey, we have this. Yeah, there's not a lot per se, except you know he is almost kind of like the one that provides Hachimaru like the strength to win at the end. So there's that, and now brings us over to the villains. And so technically we already talked about Ronin. Ronin, if you want to say is the villain, which we kind of discussed. There's really only 3 villains per se. One of them, like I said, it's kind of set up as the prima villain. Kal is set up in a way where okay, you find out it's like you find out Odd is kind of like the one who's starting things, but but then you find out okay, Kal is the one who's like kind of like the head
Mm-hmm.
of everything. So it would have, I think, and I'll bring up Kala first. Kala, I feel like would have been that antagonist that you would have probably fought at the very end.
Probably, you know, when you become godlike, because that seems to be how every shonen series ends. But hey,
It felt like that was going to be a thing. So, but there was that. As far as Benkei goes,
he's your standard shonen antagonist. In fact, he's someone you can see in someone like Fairy Tail, even just generally Hiro Mashima's current works, like Eden Zero.
yeah. Though I will say Benkei's only real significance comes from Sanda's character. So he does leave some level of importance to the story per se.
I mean, he's literally the reason why he's in the current state he is about samurai and like money and all that stuff, because he tricked his mentor into thinking that his son had only 2% chance of becoming samurai, resulting in him to doing desperate measures to make sure he does become a samurai,
Mm-hmm.
and then killing his princess and making it look like, hey, you killed her, which results in him killing himself.
Yeah.
And he takes on, let's see, Sanda as an apprentice all this time, using him. And then, you know, and once the truth's found out, he doesn't really care much. Although still says like he's justified in his actions because, heck, he would have been held back like I was. But all he cares about is just amassing power by stealing all the samurai souls and their blades and all their keys. Which is why he does this fake tournament. Granted, which did have a funny bit where Hachimaru says, I want you to join me, and it's like, this is the first time I had a combatant wanting to come on to me. But once but Dharma was able to figure out, okay, yeah, this guy's lying.
Yeah.
Let's see, so yeah, you had that. Granted, the lengths he would go to acquire power even sacrifice the ones that work for him, so yeah. Standard, let's see, typical Saturday morning cartoon villain, I guess. In terms of personality and ambitions. He does have one interesting fight with Dharma, and then there's also like the countdown. But other than that, let's see, design-wise, I'd say he's a bit too bulky, if you ask me.
Just a bit.
Granted, maybe I'm more used to like how Kishimoto's drawn the villains in the Akatsuki more than this. Well, actually, it's Okabe that's... Sorry.
Yeah, Okubo is the one who's drawing it, so there's that. It's a lot better than Boruto's villains designs. I'll say that. Okubo is a step above any of the designs from Boruto.
Well, at least the ones drawn by the Ikimoto.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that at all.
I mean, I suppose the ones designed by Kishimoto are at least decent enough, I guess.
Yeah. So then that brings us over to the I guess ultimately now the true antagonist of the story, the one who sets up Hachimaru on this path is Ata.
Oh yeah, he looks kind of like the Reaper Death Seal with sci-fi parts on, if I'm being clear. Perfectly honest.
I kind of got a Reaper Death Seal Madara fusion thing.
Oh yeah. Very destructive, very powerful. He seems like, even though he's evil now, he seems to still respect his former master.
Which I will say, when I read that, because the way how Chapter 7 ended up, you're thinking, okay, you're like, he's the bad guy. But then when you see him come down in Chapter 7, you're like, wait, is he really? Because he's showing this much empathy and respect for Dharma. So I was like,
oh yeah. And then he does the most evil thing in this. Well, one of the most. Well, okay, granted. I'm not sure if it was him that blew up the planet, but the most personal evil thing, he kills Hachimaru's father, which eventually drives, Hachimaru to eventually seek revenge against him. So yeah. So granted, due to the fact the series cancelled, it probably forced him to speed up the plan. And then, having his defeat happen a lot more quicker, so...
Yeah. And given that situation, I think I would say Oz is probably the standout antagonist out of the three.
Granted, I'd say he's still nowhere near compared to the early days of Naruto villains. Or, like, the Akatsuki.
Yeah. Well, again, it's only given the situation that we're in. Because otherwise, I think, it's like I said, if this had gotten its proper course, I think... you could have said, yeah, he could probably rival a few of them, but it's, because it got canceled, it's just in that situation now where you're like, there was potential, but we're not going to see that, But I would say, like, I think out of all the antagonists, this is the one that's probably, like, has kind of got, like, the most personal motivation set up for the main protagonist, which, which just says something. From the get-go, like, as a villain, I always thought he was interesting. Just because, like, okay, you knew he was the antagonist, but you knew he had some morals behind it. That's really telling of an antagonist, like, where, like, you have this respect for, like, someone who you used to teach. Because sometimes, like, when you would look at it, because think about it like this, like, could you imagine Obito? Like...
oh, no. Usually bad guys that had a former good teacher, like, let's see, I was once a student, but now I am the master.
Yeah, like that's the thing. So the fact that Atsu still had like the fact that he still held Dharma in higher regards was like really telling of like how much respect he has for him, which is something you don't necessarily see a lot in antagonists.
I suppose, let's see, last time I can think of one would probably be Nagato Pain with Jiraiya.
Yeah, that's probably like another time.
Or at least acknowledges if Jiraiya probably figured out his abilities sooner, he probably might have lost.
Which now we get to our favorite moments in...
I guess it'll probably be the father's death and I suppose the confession. Because honestly, I don't really find any of the fight scenes all that memorable.
For me, I would definitely say the father's death, just because ultimately, and I think he described this too. Technically, the first two volumes make up like the prologue of the story. So ultimately, forward his death is what triggers everything for Hachimaru, and
Yeah.
it does say a lot.
Makes me wonder if his own father's death has affected him writing however and every time a father character dies. But hey,
It might be,
I
but
mean, everyone, I think, many say that Might Die only existed because Kishimoto's dad died recently around that year. But hey, granted, this is all just speculation, so I can't really confirm it. But hey.
But yeah, so ultimately, I would definitely say that my favorite moments probably go from as far as story impact goes. It'd probably be that, probably the confession. I would even say the backstory for Anne too. Like,
Oh yeah,
that was another thing that kind of stood out was that.
and I guess the stuff was Sonda, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that was one thing too. I would probably also say like the final scene between Hachimaru and Anne. I thought was kind of touching and bittersweet. Like right before he disappears. I guess fights wise, the one that sticks to me is probably the Dharma fight against Benkei, just because of what he's able to do, and probably Hachi's fight against the Ryu. And again, nothing crazy per se happens, but I guess in terms of fight standouts, those two are probably it.
Fair enough. So then I take it we'll be talking about our favorite arc.
Favorite arc?
It'd probably be the second one with the tournament one because, well, that's when you're kind of starting to get a bit of the more expansion of the whole Samurai 8 universe.
Yeah.
Introduced a few new side characters, particularly the Daimak Duno and that Honorable Samurai policeman, I suppose, with his princess. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of cliche saying, oh, tournament's your favorite one because of like the battles, but it's more just because the characters that were introduced. But yeah. And also the fact that you only have the other choices, the prologue and the epilogue.
Yeah. And again, now the only see, here's the thing: the only reason why I wouldn't say really the epilogue is only because, like I've been saying, it's where it's how we get to the epilogue.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think the epilogue wasn't like okay. Outside of like say the Anne stuff, outside of like say the final fight stuff, and with how everything goes with Anne, the Anne stuff I thought was good for the epilogue. But as far as everything else, it was a little quick per se. But okay, so you would pick the tournament arc, right?
Yeah.
The tournament arc's a good pick too. I'm not gonna disagree with that. If I had to pick, I think I would probably say, and then again, this stance on mine might change in the future. So this is just me saying it right now. I would probably go with the first arc, just because of again, that's kind of where everything starts off for the series, and it's kind of like what I've been saying, like that arc ultimately is what sets up the story
Uh-huh.
character. So, but if you're talking about like character growth and everything, you could even say the second arc too. So, I mean, okay. So if I had to get like a number scale on this, as of right now, and I kid you not, they're really close. So the first arc's like at a 9.7. Second arc's like at a 9.6. So it's like a
Uh-huh.
small difference.
Wow, you're giving these arcs really high scores.
Well, that's if I were to give it a rating. Uh,
I don't think I even rate North scores that high. I mean, I gave the Pain arc a 9 out of 10. But anyway.
well, okay, if I were to be realistic, let's say like a 9 for the first arc, and then let's say like 8.8 for the second arc. So
Fair enough.
that's not like a huge difference.
Alright.
But again, this is my stance on it as of right now. Then we get to the next topic, which is what could have been better. And I think we kind of talked about this in the beginning, but
less exposition.
I would say it's more so less exposition in the beginning because, again, I thought the first chapter was pretty decent for what it was, but I could see where people would often say, it does feel like it's a little info dumpy.
It's like way too much information.
Mm-hmm. Like I feel like if you like brought
sometimes I have no idea what was going on in the story.
Like I feel like
it could be because I was rushing it, but hey.
Well, I feel like it's one of those things where if Kishi like brought him up like slowly, like say you bring up like a certain element of the samurai, and then say maybe you build up upon it. Like I guess think of it as like Hunter x Hunter, where you introduced the combat system, then you introduce Nen and et cetera, So it kind of becomes a thing where it's like, okay, you start off simple and you build upon that.
Okay.
As opposed to saying, here's everything I have planned and it's going to be all chucked into one chapter, which I don't necessarily think was the right approach. But it is what it is. Maybe, see, I know some people say it took a little bit of time for Hachimaru to get his goal.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think if Hachimaru's dad died in the first chapter, do you think it would have been more engaging, or?
I don't know. I guess it really depends on how much. Let's see, how much emotion you put into the character. I mean, rarely the character introduced into one chapter only to die has an impact as it does. I mean, compared to like the Uncle Ben kind of thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, but honestly, I mean, after all, not every protagonist needs to be like, oh, I want to become Hokage. Oh, I want to become, let's see, Pirate King or the Wizard King thing.
And
I don't know.
That's the thing, like, and I think that's what kind of made Hachimaru different was that, like, it wasn't like he wanted, like, how you could think he wanted to be a samurai, but it wasn't until Furuta dying as ultimately set up his goal. And if you think about it, for a shonen protagonist, that's pretty different. You don't see a lot of shonen protagonists like going after revenge.
Usually that's the anti-hero rival.
So I kind of thought that, and I was like, all right, so there's a major shift there from Naruto to Samurai 8 is that Naruto was like, never giving up, wanted to be Hokage. This one's like, nah, see, this dude killed my dad. Going after him, I'm like, okay. So
even though I find it ironic that the manga that's doing this is the same one that had, like, in his last series, has how revenge is bad. Don't let yourself be consumed by revenge. But then but here you go.
Yeah. See, but I think Hachimaru took it to a degree where he didn't let that revenge mindset consume him. Like he still had enough personality where, he was able to let others around him in. I would have said that again. It's more so like the end stuff that I feel like it could have improved on, and again, that's just the situation it was given in. But I think what Kishi probably should have done, and I know we mentioned in the beginning, was a one shot.
Probably.
I think that could have helped a lot.
Oh, who knows?
But because I know he said that because Kishi, from what I remember in an interview, said,
"Oh, did Eden Zero get a one shot?"
I don't think it did.
So, I suppose certain mangakas, if they're famous enough, they don't need a one shot for their second series. But hey.
Well, I remember Kishi saying this, but he thought he could use his status to where he is right now to be enough of a pushing point for Samurai 8. Which, I guess in hindsight, now if you look back on it, it is kind of one of those things where you're like, you know what, maybe you shouldn't have relied solely on your name because of what happened.
Well, I'm pretty certain. Let's see. Given the fact that you kind of literally had a movie that swindled people out of their money, from what I've heard about, with the rumors about how, let's see, you tricked Sasuke and Kakashi fans into thinking they were going to see a movie with Team 7, but end up not being a movie about Hinata and them wanting refunds. Let's see, but you wouldn't give them. I'm pretty certain they're going to be pissed. But hey, it depends if what I've been told is true about that. But yeah, in some ways, yeah. For all we know, Kishimoto's name is down in the mud for what he's done. It's Naruto, but yeah, I know. It really depends on what the fan base in Japan is like, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it was that, and then I think he also said that he also kind of hoped that the readers would have a little bit more patience, just because he knew that tackling sci-fi would be hard to do in Jump. So,
Well, clearly that was not the case.
yeah, it seemed like his suspicions were true. But it was like, well, yeah, sci-fi is kind of hard to sell in Jump, so it is what it is on that front. But what's your thoughts, Blue Star? Like, what do you think could have been better? Like
I said, less. Let's see. Exposition dumps. Fight scenes, I don't really think any of them were all that memorable, and I think the art might have been a bit messy in some places. I mean, I don't think the art is drawn badly. I think it's much better than Boruto's, but I think some of the designs of some of the cyborg samurai were a bit confusing to look at.
a little bit.
Well, I couldn't really tell, like, wait, what part is a part like that?
What about like story stuff? Do you think there was anything that probably?
I think some stories needed to be a bit more flashed out because it felt like either we were taking too long to do this bit, or it went from here to here quite quickly.
It kind of felt like people are gonna. Some people might take this the wrong way when I say it. But it kind of felt like Fairy Tale, a little like you remember how crazy Fairy Tale's pacing was back in the day.
Oh yeah, it was very short arcs.
Yeah, it pacing wise, it kind of felt like that. I think it was less about like narratives and more about like how it was paced out.
I mean, granted, I'm not sure of an exposition. Let's just granted, at least with Fairy Tale, those storylines that it did early were very simple.
Mm-hmm.
With Samurai 8, you have a much more complex exposition and world building thing.
Oh yeah,
and that's going to take a much more time to do than short arcs.
it would. Well, I mean, whenever he does do an interview, because like, it's gonna happen. We know Keisha will come out with an interview, but I think it will be kind of telling when we hear his thoughts on everything post this.
But yeah.
Well, post the volume coming out, I mean, because I think that's what happened with Naruto too. I think because I think once the final volume of Naruto came out, I think that's when he started giving his thoughts on things and whatnot. How it could have continued. Again,
Well, I guess you could do Samurai 8, The Tale of An.
Yeah, that's a simple answer. Is that like you probably could have seen a continuation from Anne's perspective, and honestly, it's like I said before. I think that would have been interesting.
I mean, after all, that final page did have two samurai that we have not even met. So yeah.
It's kind of a thing where I was like, okay, well, it's kind of like an open ending where it's like if you want to tell more stories, you could. So,
though granted, I'm not sure if Anne is popular enough to get her own sequel spin-off series.
kind of surprising, especially with this getting canceled.
But yeah, so yeah. Honestly, Kishimoto will probably just try and continue on to his next work, or maybe he'll go back to Naruto. Who knows?
Well, it's actually a good segue into the last question, which is thoughts on Kishi as a writer after Naruto.
To be honest, I can't. Since he only lasted 5 volumes, I can't really say.
That and it got canceled. So,
Oh yeah, so
you know it's with
and
where
now,
it wasn't
granted,
exactly on
I
stage.
can't tell if he got cancelled because either just that his reputation's become so poor now that people weren't willing to give it a chance, or if people in Japan found the story to be so bad it was a thing like that, or whether or not just this whole appealing or the whole setting and appeal of the series just did not really interest anyone in
Well,
Japan.
I kept up with it just to see where things are going in. There were a couple factors you could take into account. One was of the rankings in Jump. Like from what I know, like it would always kind of end up on like at like the bottom three. That and the second main contender was that the the volume sales weren't exactly the
Stella.
best in the world. Yeah, yeah, it wasn't exactly stellar.
I
Um,
mean, I guess you could argue maybe the current crisis might have had an effect on the sales, but who knows?
yeah.
If you wanted to, but still.
Yeah, so there's a number of factors you could throw into it, but the main ones was like, okay, it wasn't doing that well in the rankings, and some could argue that yeah, like the volume sales weren't exactly the best thing in the world either.
Hmm.
Uh,
So yeah.
I here's my thing though with Kishi as a writer at this point, you could definitely see that there are some areas he's improved in. Some,
And
it's not a lot, but
and in some areas you wonder, has he gone worse with like the info dumping?
like as far as female characters go, I will say it's kind of like what I said earlier. I do think that's like where his improvement has come on that part. Again, well, we again, it's like I said, we don't know where it would have gone in his
Well,
actual, but
in terms, I suppose, of personalities, fine though. In terms of action, yeah, you still have a lot to be desired.
the action's a one aspect you could say. But
I mean, after all, this is a battle manga. But then again, most battle mangas only give their female characters one or two fights to shine in, and then that's it. So hey.
oh, Chico. Yeah,
Oh,
I am never gonna let her go.
no, you are not, Lakichi.
Hey,
No, you are not.
hey, if this was Sparta, he would take it to an even bigger length than I do.
Oh, yeah.
He would take it to a much bigger length than I do. And we know full well about that.
Oh, yes.
He's done good on that. Again, there's some areas I think he could have improved in. I don't think there needed to be a lot of exposition, for one thing, but I got the purpose of it, so it wasn't one of those things where I was like, just get over it. Like again, it's more so the execution of how you present the information, less about why it's there.
Granted, I will say another thing about the story is I do think it got a bit overpowered quite quickly. I think some of the characters were a bit overpowered quite quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, world destroying. Granted, it's a sci-fi in space, so I suppose you can get a bit more away of that, but still.
Again, because it got canceled, we didn't really get to see a full grasp of how Kishi could have ended it on his own terms, you know. And I think that's where you kind of hit that middle ground where you're like, well, we don't. It's like okay, we see glimpses of it in Samurai, but we don't see the full extent of it because of what happened, you know.
No, granted, I do think some of the villains have a bit too bulky designs, but hey.
Yeah, if I had to pick the one design, I guess that stands out. I would probably say it's Ata out of the bunch. Now, I'll say this: his improvements don't exactly make up for how things turned out in Naruto, but I will give him some credit where it's due. It's not a lot, but it's something.
Well, to be honest, I think Kishimaru's writing skills will always be judged on what he did with Naruto.
Call it baby steps. We'll get to that. It's baby steps right now. Who knows? What do you actually think this does mean for Kishi though? Moving forward, do you think this means they'll try to go for another attempt, or do you think this is going to be him just going like, You know what?
Well, most mangakas, like I said, I think early in the podcast, usually only famous for one bit of work.
Hmm.
Rarely are they two. Granted, he could go the Toriyama approach and design characters for games, maybe, like Dragon Quest. Granted, he might decide to, like, okay, I tried writing, that failed. How about I team up with someone else? Let's see, and then this time I do the drawing. Now, granted, I'm wondering due to his current health and condition whether or not he'll do that. It's possible that with a new series failed, he tries to go back to his old one, get more involved in the projects that are currently going on, or he could just retire, or he could just do like another new series and learn from them and try again next time.
Yeah.
And from what I can tell from most of his one shots, he likes gangsters and sci-fi stuff. So who knows? Maybe you might try to do something like Mario, but much longer.
He could. Yeah. I think what he might this might be my other advice to Kishi is that, like, if you do come back with a new work, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does, it might be a while before we see it, given how long it took for this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my advice for him would be, if you have an idea, work it out. Do what you did with Samurai 8 and work out the idea. But instead of automatically launching it like you did with Samurai 8, because, well, reception already said a lot about it when the first chapter came out. Do this. Do a one shot. See what people think. Just test the waters out. Take some of those comments into consideration. Don't do anything crazy like you did with Naruto, and actually take that feedback to a point where you have to change, like, major story shifts, but just in terms of presentation,
How cool Black Clover's one shot was very similar to its first chapter.
It was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my thing. Like, I would honestly just say, all right, you know what? If you have another idea, which I'm pretty sure you do, work it out, flush it out like you did with this. Have it as a one shot. See what people think, and whatever people say about it from the one shot, take that into consideration. Build it into a series. You probably wouldn't have heard me say this at the time when Naruto ended, but whenever you do your next series, whenever it does come, only words I can say is best of luck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd say from the premise of the series, I think I've heard some people on YouTube say that this series felt like it was trying to be Naruto, but with the journey of One Piece.
It didn't feel like that.
Now, who knows? Whether or not Kishimoto and Oda ever do a team-up manga, that remains to be seen, but hey.
That'd be crazy.
Well, who knows? Maybe you could go to Togashi. It's like, hey, Togashi, how about I just draw your manga and you just continue writing it? But hey, you probably won't get much complaints on that from people. But hey,
that'd be funny, honestly.
But yeah. But then again, who knows?
You got anything you want to say about Keith and where in the future moving forward from this?
Now, on one hand, I still haven't forgiven him for what Naruto does.
No, I mean, with how things ended up there, I don't think any of us are, but
I see, and I'm not sure whether or not I would have, bought. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy any of the volumes of this work. I mean, who knows? Maybe I might just do it because there's only 5 volumes. And It's just like a pastime. But like that, or just something to fill up the missing spaces in my bookshelves. But hey. But let's see. I have a feeling Kishimoto will probably try some other. Let's see. But like I said, he probably try something. Let's see. Either something else that's from Fedo Japan or from like Japanese history or maybe even gangsters. Heck, maybe Yakuza. But I will admit, let's see, in some ways he's improved, others I would not say. It's very hard to tell.
Just because of what happened.
Oh yeah. Now, granted, if he ever decides that I screwed up with the ending of Naruto, I want to redo it. I'm all for it. Who knows? And see if if he wants to do what the Shaman King Arthur did. I'll be all for it. But hey, or you will not, like screw it. I'm creating multiple parallel universes for Naruto, but I don't know. I expect that he might get a more direct involvement in the Boruto series at this point. Who knows? It really depends.
Yeah, he's kind of like in that unknown space where you're like, you don't know exactly where he's gonna go, but
I mean, let's see. What's his current age?
at the moment, he was okay. So let me think. He was 40 when Naruto finished. So I think he's like 46, 46 or 45.
45. Let's see. So I'd say if he wanted to, he probably could get out one more manga series out of him, perhaps.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time Oda's expecting to finish One Piece, he'll be 50s, and let's see, that'll probably be a bit too much to do another long series.
Yeah, right. So I honestly, I know I kind of gave my points on this, but I think Kishi has enough to tackle one more thing. I think I don't remember where I saw this, but I know he said that whatever miscomings I had with Naruto, I would take that forward and apply it to my next work and improve upon it. And he said whenever this comes to an end, he would take that into account too. So I don't remember where the article is. I'm gonna find it. But
okay. Well, regardless, he's still the mangaka of perhaps the fourth highest selling series of all time.
yeah.
Let's see, apparently Naruto has sold over 250 million copies. Granted, not sure that's counting Boruto, but still.
Despite this failure, Jump would still give him a chance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, after all, like I just said, he has the fourth highest selling manga series of all time. The only things that surpass him are Oda's One Piece, which has got 473 million copies sold. Dragon Ball, which has 200 to 300 million. And then something called Go 13, which is an ongoing series since 1968. Blimey. So we have to just wait and see what's going to happen. I mean, I don't think we're going to find anything out anytime soon due to the fact that we have a current crisis.
No. Now, what we could do whenever this does happen, whenever Kishi does do an interview, we could always just tackle whatever he says.
Fair enough. Well, granted, I'm pretty certain James would tell you Kishimoto isn't the most reliable interviewer.
Yeah, there's that, but
particularly in the post last era of Naruto.
that is something.
But
unfortunately. Yeah. But I know some people are gonna look at this like, look, gee, what the hell? I'm like, look, with how long I followed Naruto, there's a lot there that's still like. But if I have to give some closing thoughts about this, about his latest work right now, Samurai 8, I don't regret reading it, first and foremost. In fact, I thought it was just kind of interesting just seeing where he would go after Naruto. And it was enjoyable for what it was.
Yeah, I suppose in some ways, Samurai after Ninja would probably be the next logical step, I guess. Now, granted, whether or not he's going to continue doing something traditionally Japanese, let's see, some might make jokes about sumo. Let's see, who knows? Though, granted, given that Mario, I think he probably might try to do some mafia or yakuza thing.
It wouldn't surprise me if he does, because I'll tell you this, that Mario one-shot was pretty decent.
So, yeah. For all we know, he might try and do a Senin series next.
Which, dude, if Anime News Network comes out and drops that information, like, hey, Kishimoto comes back with the Seinen series, about Yakuza. I would be sitting there going like,
Though granted, I want him to stay away from Ritzy doing shoujo.
shut up. I don't think he's a fan of that.
But no, but just romance manga in general.
Well, I mean, look at it this way. He made some improvements in Samurai when it came to the romance department.
Yes.
So who knows?
Yeah, though, let's see. Yeah, though, granted, most romance manga have love triangles, so stay away from that.
Or at least don't include the love triangles. Whatever you did here with the Hachimaru and Anne, which I think was probably the biggest standard of the manga out of everything, take that approach. No love triangles. No guy gets okay. Well, Hachimaru kind of got jealous over Goku, but it was brief. Nothing like that. If you have a relationship, just do what you did here. Okay, two characters, them sorting their things out, them confessing. You have a nice, genuine story right there, and you just proved it right here. You proved right here that okay, as far as romance goes, you're capable of telling it, and much better than the canon ships. I'll leave it at that because the less I speak about them, the better.
Oh yeah.
Closing thoughts are, like I said, characters were enjoyable, had an interesting premise. Unfortunate with what happened to Kishi in the situation, but I do wish him the best of luck for whatever he does next.
Well, I mean, let's see whether or not it was his own reputation or his own skills as a writer affected. We won't know until later. But hey, yeah, I'd say it's a quick read. I know probably some people are probably still not forgiving him for Naruto's ending. I'd say you could probably find this online and read it if you want to and stuff, or if you want to support, or I suppose if you want, you have a quick read. Let's see. Who knows? I mean, I'm pretty certain you will have the time during this crisis. So yeah.
And it's only 5 volumes. Take that into account. It's short.
Unlike having to try and collect a 72 series.
72 series or 95.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
We love One Piece. We love One Piece, but it has a lot of volumes.
Yeah, I mean, the only way you're going to collect those is if you save up for the box sets. But anyway, what I do know is that you plan on doing Manga Wars podcast soon, right?
That is going to be. I do plan on doing that. It's just a matter, and we're still going to do Naruto versus Fairy Tail. That's still going to be a thing.
Are you wanting to know whether or not you want For Life to join us?
That's the thing. Because I know, and I said this in my update video. I know that was predominantly it's been predominantly a Blue Star Lucky Chi and Sparta show. And I know we've been trying to get other people on board. So who knows? Maybe we can try and see if other people want to join.
Let's see. And now that Samurai 8 is ended, you now have another cancelled series to add to the collection.
Yeah.
So who knows? Perhaps some people will maybe wanting a Naruto versus Samurai 8.
Naruto versus Samurai 8. Samurai 8 versus Devil Art. Oh, that'd be funny.
Or some other cancelled swordsman manga series that you can think of.
Maybe.
After all, you do like doing cancelled Manga Wars podcasts.
It's been a while since I've done one, though, so... I'm still going to post the other ones up, too, but...
Oh, yeah, because I'm pretty certain we've done quite a few that you still have yet to post.
Yep, people who want to enjoy Sparta's absence right now. Well, the Manga Wars episodes are here. You'll get your Sparta fix.
Oh, yeah. And I have a few ideas what to do myself, though granted, I'm wondering whether or not to do it with For Life or not, but who knows? It depends. Like Ichi, are you up for some Naruto, Bleach, or maybe Fairy Tail podcasts?
I wouldn't mind.
Fair enough. Okay, nothing's set in stone. Lucky Chi, I believe, has a few things he needs to do for the next few weekends, but we'll be back soon, people.
We will. And with that being said, you guys, you know what? That's pretty much it. Blue Star. It was really fun having this discussion with Samurai 8 with you. Especially again, I think it was also just really interesting, just thinking of how things have been with Kishi again, coming out from Naruto, and where our thoughts are overall on it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was interesting. To be honest, if it was like 5 years ago after Naruto's ending, I would not be touching Kishimoto's work right now.
Mm-hmm.
But now with a much more calmer head.
Yeah.
Now, granted, still holding a grudge.
And given how the way this ended, now you're kind of in that spot where you're like, all right, you know what? This time it wasn't really his fault, so.
Yeah, though, granted, I think you have some people laughing at the fact that he was going to have a 10-volume series and he didn't even get, and he only got halfway through it.
Better half than 3.
Well, yeah, I mean, granted, let's see, one more closing thought on this thing is, I will say at least for Samurai 8, in terms of cancelled series, it lasted much longer than usual.
It lasted much longer, and its ending wasn't necessarily that bad. Because there have been other canceled series we've read, which are kind of like,
Wait, this is how it ends?
Huh?
It's like, wait, this is how it ends?
Yeah. Like Samurai 8, you actually get a conclusion towards the end.
Unlike Zombie Powder.
That's unfortunate. Unlike Zombie Powder, especially unlike Double Arts.
Oh, For Life will never hear the end of that one.
No. He's gonna miss this. He's gonna listen to all this and just be like, damn, should have been on all these podcasts. We miss you too, buddy. Just
yes.
It's like I said, it was an enjoyable ride. Had some fun characters. I thought, again, coming off from Naruto, seeing the characters, seeing their journey. Again, rushed fashion, but you got to see a conclusion. You got to see where they ended up. It's kind of bittersweet, but...
And it doesn't end with an ending that promises, that let's see, implies you're going to get a sequel series.
No. You have an open ending for sure, but it's not one of those things where you're like...
Let's see. Instead of an epilogue, you're getting a prologue. Because that's honestly what Naruto's ending felt like.
It was. See, here's the thing. Naruto's ending was you're introduced to a bunch of new kids, and it's like, I haven't grown a connection to them. Whereas here, you actually spend time with some of the characters that you ran into. Like this, people are going to be mad when I say this. This actually felt like an ending in a weird way. That's what I'll say. This actually felt like an ending.
Oh, yeah.
Again, a rushed ending, but an ending nonetheless.
Oh, yeah. At least this time, the manga protagonist did not get a haircut.
No, but instead, he went out with a bang.
I guess. Well, I'm BlueStarSaber.
I'm Lucky Cheese 7, and we will catch you guys next time. Stay safe, stay clean, and don't do anything crazy like Blue Star.